gbt.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christys Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christys Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think GB News is completely unique in the way that we interact with our viewers.
Our audience aren't afraid to have their say. They want their voices heard now, and they've got a channel where that can happen.
I find more and more as I'm wandering around, people come up to me and they say, "We saw you on television." I say, "Oh yes, on what?" "On GB News."
Hello, are you the famous Sue? The whole crew is me here now. We came to celebrate.
It's our job to be the eyes and ears of the viewers.
They are part of the GB News family, and I'm pleased to say it's a very large family.
And if people go to the time and trouble of listening and watching, then we've got to do a good job for them.
Well, I'm here right in the epicentre of the protest.
Here we go again. You just tuned in. Where have you been?
It is raucous here tonight.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Good morning, Britain. Good evening, America. Hello, wherever you're watching around the world. We are live from the GB News studios in London, England, with all the stories shaping Britain and America. Breaking tonight, Andy Burnham is preparing to unveil his vision for Britain in a major speech later today. But tonight, GB News can bring you a first look at what's coming. Dare I say it, brace yourselves.
Now is the change moment. We have an opportunity to turn the tide, to make the country feel like it's working again.
Britain's boomerang borders. You will not believe how many previously deported migrants have been recorded re-entering the UK since 2021. And breaking tonight, you or I could soon be deciding whether failed asylum seekers can stay in Britain.
Your situation is very similar. You know, you have people coming in, and I told the Prime Minister I would stop it, and it doesn't matter if you call out the military, it doesn't matter what means you use.
Britain's Navy goes drone. Plans for a new fleet of destroyers have reportedly been scrapped in favour of drone motherships and autonomous warfare. Is that the right move?
We're living in more dangerous and volatile times than at any time in my life or in your life.
And drama in Holyrood. The King has been drawn into a fresh political row after being made to sit through a controversial performance at the Scottish Parliament.
Oh, you mean Darien, the New World, the shipbuilding?
Aye, the shipbuilding.
For the slaves.
Oh, I weep for the future. I'm Will Kingston and this is The Late Show Live. Welcome to The Late Show Live, ladies and gentlemen, on the People's Channel, GB News. Joining me this evening in London is my panel of former Conservative Minister Tom Pursglove and GB News contributor and the People's Gammon Paul Cox. In Washington is foreign correspondent Sarah Firth and Senior Research Fellow at the Heritage Foundation, Simon Hankinson. Thank you for joining me tonight, team. Well, tomorrow, ladies, or I should say today, we find out whether or not we will change Prime Minister for a black T-shirt and a nicer smile or a different vision for this country. Britain has had 7 Prime Ministers in 10 years. 7.
To my fantastic wife, Vic, who has been a rock by my side through good times and bad.
At this point, Downing Street has become less of a seat of government and more Britain's most expensive Airbnb. And now, before he's even unpacked the boxes, Andy Burnham is planning to open another. Because tomorrow, the man expected to become Britain's next Prime Minister will unveil plans for what he's calling Number 10 North. Because apparently, one isn't enough.
Rome is saved.
Rome is saved, somebody shouts as Andy Burnham arrives in Westminster. Well, let's hope so, and let's say I'm a bit more sceptical than that, because indeed Britain does need saving, ladies and gentlemen. We've got sluggish growth, crumbling public services, an immigration system in chaos, and taxes at a 70-year high. But apparently the answer is another Prime Minister's office. Now look, Britain is ridiculously centralised. Too many decisions affecting the North are made by people who think the North begins somewhere around Watford. But politicians have been saying this for decades.
And I will get Northern Powerhouse Rail built.
Ah, yes, the Northern Powerhouse. Remember that? Whatever happened to that, I wonder? Well, it's currently sitting next to HS2 in Britain's giant warehouse of broken promises. People in the North don't want gimmicks. They don't want slogans. They want decent jobs, safe streets, affordable homes and a GP appointment before 2037. And of course, that's what everyone in the country wants. But remember, Andy Burnham isn't proposing this after winning a general election. He's preparing to become Prime Minister without the country ever having voted for him.
The principle is the same. Let the public decide on the next Prime Minister, you wrote. So that situation could apply to now. Do you want the public to decide on the next Prime Minister now?
Well, we live in a parliamentary democracy where the Prime Minister is chosen by MPs. That is the situation that we're in now.
You didn't say that in October 2022.
Funny how principles can be flexible when you need them to be. Labor says the public doesn't want an election, and that's funny. Whenever politicians say the public doesn't want an election, what they usually mean is we've looked at the polls and we'd lose. Now, maybe Burnham is right. Maybe power does need to leave Westminster, but if you're going to fundamentally reshape how Britain is governed, shouldn't the British people get a say first? Because millions of people voted for Keir Starmer. They didn't vote for Andy Burnham. Britain doesn't need a second Downing Street. It needs the first one to start working for the people. With me now, friend of the show and political editor of The Independent, David Maddox, and also editor of Spiked Online, one fan favourite, Tom Slater. Thank you both. David, I'll start with you. To me, it seems like there are two options. Either you continue on with the Labor manifesto, albeit in a black T-shirt and a slightly nicer smile, or you offer a different vision and you go to an election. What am I missing?
Look, I kind of agree with you. I think I've heard this, we're not a presidential system so many times from different people, but usually they say the opposite when we're in opposition. I mean, we are effectively a presidential system. We vote for prime ministers first and foremost. That's what's on the ticket, really, at an election. Whether it's technically true or not. And I think that the sort of change that Andy Burnham's talking about really has no justification in the 2024 election manifesto. It was a very weak, very timid manifesto which promised very little and offered very little. And as Keir Starmer found out, it's one of the reasons he's going, is that he was unable to do anything because he failed to provide any sort of bold vision. Well, looking at the trail for his speech tomorrow, Andy Burnham's definitely going bold vision, but does he have the mandate to do it? And that's going to be a serious question.
And Tom, on this bold vision for the country, this is part of Manchesterism. I'm still not exactly sure what that is. do you think that this vision is something that is capable of addressing the many and deep systemic problems that the country faces?
I think the problem with Manchesterism is that no one can really define it such as we can. It's Andy Burnham taking a lot of credit for a lot of investment which was already set in train before he even took office, or it's presiding over not a publicly owned but a publicly controlled bus network, sort of TfL model of socialism. This is sort of what he's been alluding to here. The idea that that's going to rejuvenate the country, the idea that that's something which is going to be significant when rolled out nationwide is not obvious to me, to put it lightly. And on these questions of wanting to devolve power down, I mean, every government is in favour of devolution. I think the problem is it can often come at the expense of a discussion of what the right policy should be nationwide. I mean, you can devolve powers, but if there is not a clear sense of what the national vision is, that's not going to get you very far. And it can often just be a means of sort of central government, whilst we are too centralised, and that does need to be addressed, kind of dodging responsibility, having someone else to blame, and that can become a problem in and of itself in many respects.
Yeah, David, this is the question that I have, in that the two burning issues in this country, and they have been the burning issues for a decade now, are immigration and the economy, and a conversation around the Constitution and devolution of powers may play to the Westminster bubble, but will it actually land with the people who matter, the voters?
I'm not sure. I think devolution stuff goes over people's heads. I'm, formerly of a Scotsman and a Scottish patch, and, the one thing that bored readers senseless was talking about more devolution and more that, more powers for the Scottish Parliament at the time, and there's a real problem. I'm a bit of a devolution skeptic. There's a real problem with accountability and transparency with these people you're devolving powers to. I think there's some, there's been some question marks already about Andy Burnham and the failure to deliver social housing with money going to big property developers. This is not a straightforward thing whatsoever. And I was interested in your comments on the number 10 of the North. Of course, there is a number 10 of the North. It just happens to be in the Northeast. Rishi Sunak created one in Teesside alongside the Treasury of the North in the Northeast. So basically, he's wanted to set one up in the Northwest. I mean, it is, these gimmicks just continue, but they don't really seem to deliver much.
Tom, do you think he will call an early election within the next 6 to 12 months?
It's very difficult to tell. I mean, the two incentives for him would be if he did want to engage in any kind of genuine break from the very thin manifesto that Keir Starmer stood on and that David was elucidating there. And also whether or not they think this is just their best bet, that the Burnham bounce, if there is one, might be a little bit short-lived. So going earlier would be better than waiting, kind of taking a sort of Theresa May style gamble, only with an ounce more personality, shall we say, with the person at the top there. So it's really difficult to say. I could see it going either way, but you do wonder whether or not they'd be tempted after seeing even a modest recovery in the polls, given how bad things have been recently.
Time will tell. Thank you, David. Thank you, Tom. Lovely to get your insights as always. Let's go to my panel now. In London, we have former Conservative Minister Tom Perslove and GB News contributor Paul Cox, and in Washington, foreign correspondent Sarah Firth, and Senior Research Fellow at the Heritage Foundation, friend of the show, Simon Hankinson. Thank you, team. Paul, I'll start with you. What are you expecting from the speech, well, today now?
Well, I'm expecting quite a bit of smiling. That'll be absolutely guaranteed.
Eyebrow lashes.
Eyelashes, yeah. I think there'll be a suit and a tie this time. It's a very strange situation, actually. The fact that Andy Burnham, as the MP of Makerfield, will stand up tomorrow and talk to the country as if he is the Prime Minister of this country, whilst the Prime Minister of this country, who has resigned, will just sit in number 10, I assume. He's going to give, and for my money at least, if he breaks from the manifesto, then he is going, then that would be politics without a mandate. Because Keir Starmer, as much as I'm no fan, he was voted in as Prime Minister in 2024. And he's failed to do that. If Andy Burnham thinks that's a failure, then he should go back to the people and ask them what they want.
And Tom, how likely do you think that is?
I think that this could well be building towards a general election. It seems to me that there is a little bit of disarray around reform at the moment and that things are not all well there. I think that by the virtue of having incumbent Labour MPs, you are better placed than other parties to mount a general election campaign quickly. And I also think that this issue of not having a mandate is really problematic, because we are in a world now where voters have realistic expectations about what their politicians need to do. They want to see swift action. Andy Burnham is talking about a whole host of things in this speech tomorrow, if it's delivered as it's been briefed out, including nationalisation of key industries. They've got no mandate for that, including tax rises. No mandate for that. In fact, it would be a very clear breach of that 2024 manifesto. So I think that that is a very tenuous position by which to start from. And ultimately, the public is cross. I don't think he's got any answers to the big issues, the big challenges that voters really care about. He's got no credible plan to resolve illegal migration. In fact, it seems that policy is going to be going the wrong way on his watch. So the pressure could well build for that election to come sooner rather than later.
Simon, I'll go to you. At the same time, if he, for example, relaxes the fiscal rules, just continues to tax and spend and dishes out money, particularly to the north, will the public really care about constitutional things like mandates and whether or not indeed he does have the right to be able to alter the manifesto that Starmer took to the last election?
Well, look, the Romans used to say bread and circuses, right? Unfortunately, you can buy off a lot of the people, maybe enough of the people, for a long time, because they just don't think about, 5 years in the future of their grandchildren. They think about tomorrow. And if he starts throwing the benefits around and throws caution to the wind on the debt, he has very little wiggle room as far as I can see. But yeah, he probably could sort of bribe his way through to a couple years of maneuver.
Sarah, your thoughts?
Listen, guys, I want to share a personal anecdote about Andy Burnham, because I know he's got this reputation in the media right now for being a T-shirt and a smile. I like his style, for the record. But I actually was reporting in the aftermath of the 2017 Manchester Arena bombing, that terrible tragedy that struck Manchester. And actually, when I was talking to Simon just before we started, he said, was he mayor back then? I said, you know what? I mean, he must have been. He was the man that was speaking to all the press. I didn't realise he'd only been in the job a few weeks. He didn't use that moment for political grandstanding, and I have an anecdote that really has always stayed with me whenever Andy Burnham's name comes up, and that's in all the chaos and all the aftermath. You know what these sort of heads are like when you're trying to get a soundbite and everything's busy. They go for the main legacy media people. I was a young, ambitious reporter, very unknown. He took time to speak to absolutely everyone he could in the press, and his focus was absolutely on providing the support that the families and the children that were involved in this horrific terrorist attack needed. He set up a fund that raised, I think, millions, tens of millions for supporting the children. He also, at the time, he created a sort of clinical hub where there was psychological support given for the children and their families. And it was just, it's one of those brief personal asides, but it really made an impact on me at the time. I was like, yeah, this guy's different. And one thing I will say, we speak about the sort of number 10 of the North. I think that's fantastic if he absolutely does it. And I think his first official guest should be President Trump. But the emblem of Manchester is the worker bee. That is part of Andy Burnham's heart and soul. He has represented Manchester and he is loved by large parts of Manchester. And I really think that a lot of the country could grow to love him if they see what he is capable of and what he's like in character, taking on these huge challenges that you guys have laid out so well. But I also think internationally, President Trump would absolutely love him. Look, he gave that interview at the White House to Bev Turner. She's fantastic. It's always getting President Trump's attention. Brilliant reporting, as usual, generating headlines in the UK, I saw. But look, President Trump didn't really know who Burnham was or what he was about. Well, I can tell you, he comes from a proper working class background. His dad was, I think, a telephone engineer. He won his place in Cambridge, and even then he didn't, join the posh lot. He made sure he stuck to his northern roots. So this man's got something about him. I think President Trump will see that. One thing we know, President Trump loves a fighter, and Andy Burnham's that.
Well, of course, Trump said of Burnham he is extremely liberal, but Sarah, I tend to agree with you. I wouldn't be exactly sure how much he really knows about Andy Burnham. Still ahead on The Late Show Live, ladies and gentlemen.
We're living in dangerous and volatile times than at any time in my life or in your life.
Yes, plans for a new fleet of destroyers have reportedly been scrapped in favour of drone motherships and autonomous warfare. Is that the right move? Also tonight, breaking tonight, you or I could soon be about to decide whether failed asylum seekers can stay in Britain. This is The Late Show Live, only on the People's Channel, GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Oh, you mean Darien, the New World, the shipbuilding?
The shipbuilding.
For the slaves.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live, only on the People's Channel, GB News. Well, the King has been drawn into a fresh political row after being made to sit through a controversial performance at the Scottish Parliament. I think that's putting it politely. That's coming up shortly. But first tonight, the government has announced a major overhaul of the immigration appeals system, creating a new independent body designed to speed up the removal of failed asylum seekers and foreign criminals. Ministers say the new independent Immigration Appeals Authority will end the current system of repeated appeals, which they argue is being used to delay deportations. The Home Office says more than 150,000 immigration and asylum appeals are currently waiting to be heard, with the average case taking 61 weeks. Under the plans, migrants will have to bring all claims at once through a single appeal route in a move ministers say will prevent abuse of the system and accelerate removals. The body will be staffed by professionally trained and independently appointed adjudicators, much like a magistrate, who will have a broad range of skills and backgrounds with safeguards to ensure high standards. In other words, it means you or I could train to be on the panel which decides whether migrants are removed from Britain. And I tell you what, I would love that. The new body is expected to begin hearing cases in late 2027. With me now, Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control, Rob Bates. Rob, simple question, will this work?
Well, it depends what you want it to do. If you want to see the numbers being removed from the country shoot up dramatically, then it probably won't. The government's own press release this evening has suggested it just wants to increase the number of removals by 45,000 over a decade. That's only 4,500 a year. So that is nowhere near the scale that we need to be seeing. And actually, I think in large part, this is about addressing a problem that the Labour government has created itself, which is that the asylum appeals backlog has exploded under their watch. It's increased by about 70% in size in just the last year alone. So the situation on that side of things has been really a growing sore that they've been very reluctant to talk about. I think this definitely reducing the number of appeals that asylum seekers are able to make is the right thing, but I don't think it's really actually meeting the moment. I think actually we're way beyond tinkering such as this, which is what this is. This is tinkering. Actually, I think the idea that asylum seekers are able to make an appeal at all is something that a lot of people question. Actually, whether we even need really an asylum system at this point at all, given the sheer number of applications that we've processed in the last few years, the cost it's imposed socially and fiscally on the British population. So again, I just don't think this is Labour meeting where the public actually are.
On that last point, I agree with you. My argument has always been, if you don't change the fundamental legal framework which has enabled people to come to this country and stay in this country, more people will come. To use your word, everything else is tinkering. Have you heard anything from this government that says they have the appetite to change that underlying legal framework, starting with the ECHR and the Human Rights Act?
There's absolutely nothing, and this plan itself, you know, an individual can have their appeal rejected but remain in the country just simply because returning them to their country of origin would present some risk of refoulement, and under the Refugee Convention, of course, that would be undoable. So actually, I think, again, the Labour Party, being, as it is, wedded to international law and wedded to anything apart from pursuing the national interest, won't be able to fix the small boats problem and the asylum crisis whilst it operates within those parameters. And instead, what we are going to get is these kind of what are gimmicks presented with a lot of coverage to act as if they are clamping down. I mean, this is barely a major overhaul. A major overhaul would be doing actually what the majority of the country want now, which is to just freeze the asylum system.
Sadly, I think this problem is not going away. So, Rob, we will be speaking to you again. Thank you for your time. Let's go to my London panel. I'll start with you. Paul, do you have any confidence that this will actually change the illegal boats crisis?
No, I mean, it does. It genuinely feels like a gimmick. It feels like a Saturday night ITV TV show. The public decide who will go home, which is bonkers. Let's face it. What really needs to happen here is a complete system overhaul. Simon in the US there has worked in immigration. Family members of mine have worked in immigration. It hasn't always been this way. We've had a reinterpretation of the ECHR, which favours human rights lawyers. The ECHR hasn't changed for many decades, but all of a sudden, many people are using it to their advantage. This isn't. We are full. I know it sounds ridiculous when we say that, but we have a certain capacity of infrastructure within the UK that can cope with a certain amount of illegal and legal immigration. We are beyond that point now. Just having this lottery-based system, stop them coming. Shut the borders, create a new system.
Well, Simon, Paul teed you up there. With any policy the government implements, I imagine you need some form of cost-benefit analysis, and almost without exception, the benefits need to outweigh the costs. I can't see how the benefits of an asylum system outweigh the costs, other than to make us feel good and to promote our virtue to the rest of the world. Why do we still maintain this system?
Well, look, the math of this is pretty simple. If you are being flooded and you stem only 20% of the flood, you're still going to drown. And the fact is that of, say, 100 people that arrive illegally in the UK or Germany or France or Italy or even the United States a few years ago, let's say 50% of them are refused asylum, but they only deport 1 out of 5 of those. It means 75+% of people who arrive illegally in the UK are going to get to stay. They know that, and that's going to motivate the flow to come from Afghanistan, from Ghana, from Nigeria, from countries where they may have a claim, but often from places like India, where they don't have a claim at all. There's no credible claim. I've lived in India 2 years. No one has a credible claim to asylum coming out of Ghana, coming out of India, coming out of half the countries where people come, Albania, Romania. But they will keep claiming because the math is on their side. And the entire global structure, the globalist structure, the UN, the International Organization for Migration, the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, where I narrowly avoided being a deputy high commissioner not so long ago, they are all geared towards mass migration from the global south, laundered as asylum and refugee policy. So until that fundamental system is reformed, and as Paul says, stopped, to give people a chance to sort out the mess that they've made, nothing will change. And this is just tinkering at the edges.
Sarah, is this tinkering at the edges?
This whole discussion, guys, first of all, the idea of just stop people coming in altogether and stop the boats. Yeah, we have an immigration problem, that's clear, and it needs to be fixed. But the system, I agree with everything everyone said in terms of the system, being broken, and will this really be any kind of a real fix? If the system is broken, what frustrates me about the political language around this, regardless of the government, actually, Labour and the Conservatives have used similar language, is that you're blaming it on the people within the system, not the system itself. So right now, I mean, looking at some of the information that came in, I completely understand. I want to say that to viewers, that, no one wants that system broken, right? But just look at the numbers, 61 weeks just to get a hearing. That's currently the situation. And I just want people at home to imagine what that does to a human being. Most asylum seekers are living on less than £2 a day. They are stuck in this system where the backlog is absolutely huge. Labour didn't cause that crisis. They're not allowed to work during that entire time.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, and on that I entirely agree with you. This didn't originate with Labor, but I imagine many people who are watching at home would say, you know what, there are so many problems in this country. We don't really care about how comfortable or uncomfortable asylum seekers are in the 61 weeks before they get a hearing. My question to you would be, if there is that cost-benefit analysis for an asylum policy, how do the benefits outweigh the costs? And can we go beyond just, well, this is morally the right thing to do, in inverted commas?
Okay, yeah, I do want to talk about that because and Simon and me were talking about it a little bit. So if you're talking about a drain on the taxpayer, right, again, the drain is the problem with the system, not the people. But taking them 61 weeks, the government system, 61 weeks to read a single file. These are people coming, and again,
but Sarah, my question is, what's the benefit of... Why shouldn't we scrap asylum altogether, is my question.
Because you need asylum seekers. First of all, we have obligations, again, that Britain has made under international laws as humans.
Well, let's say we scrap those. What is the benefit to Britain?
Okay, well then the benefit to Britain is pretty clear. When they actually are accepted into the system, they work, they contribute to our country. These are people often who want to pay taxes, they want to work, they want to contribute. And so again, Simon, I'm not disagreeing with you. The system is broken, right? Like, we both fully agree on that. What I'm saying is the focus should not be on the people coming in, because, yeah, I mean, Simon, when we talk about the finance, I'm talking about the human cost of this. Like, if we just stopped asylum altogether, I mean, surely that would break, first of all, some major international obligations to protect people fleeing from war and persecution. And then second of all, why are we always talking about just the financial cost? Again,
Sarah,
that's 61 weeks. These are people who are waiting, wanting to work. Fix the
Sarah,
system.
I take your point, but
the people.
I take your point. I do want to bring in Tom here. Tom, above and beyond, say, the economic benefits, and I would dispute that. Apparently 1.2 million migrants are on universal credit in this country. Migrants from third world countries almost always are net detractors from the economy as opposed to net contributors. I ask you the question, what is the benefit of an asylum policy? And I believe the Conservatives still are standing by some form of an asylum policy.
Well, look, you know, all consent for migration has been completely destroyed by what we've seen happening in the Channel. And Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, has been very clear that we ought to be suspending some of those safe and legal routes that this government is talking about introducing, despite the fact that it hasn't got under control the situation in the Channel. And
but this still doesn't address my question. Why don't we scrap asylum altogether? I haven't heard a solid argument for the tangible benefits for an asylum policy, apart from international legal obligations, which we can remove ourselves from, or it's morally the right thing to do. And I think the public is past that. What are the tangible benefits?
So, from my perspective, I think this country has a proud record of providing sanctuary to those in desperate straits. And that has been the right thing when you look at that historically. But what is not acceptable is when people come across paying evil criminal gangs a fee to get in a small boat, be brought across the Channel and abuse the system and actually make it harder to be able to help some of those people who are genuinely most in need. Now, look, there should be a much smaller contribution that we make as part of this overall international effort, but it relies upon getting this issue in the Channel under control. And the only way that you're going to do that is with the sorts of steps that we put in place. These individuals who came illegally were banned from having asylum, quite rightly too. Things like accommodating them on military sites while their case was resolved and removals then happened. Labour scrapped some of those sites, they're now reintroducing them. Things like the one-stop shop for appeals would have helped to get these people through the system more quickly. But ultimately, you're not going to solve the issue of illegal migration unless you detain and remove every last arrival who comes in that way. I think when you've done that, you can then look to be supportive of some of the most disadvantaged and suffering people in the world.
Paul, I've asked this panel for tangible benefits of an asylum policy. Tom has talked about a proud historical record, which again goes to a feel-good factor. It's not a tangible benefit for the country. What are the tangible benefits for an asylum policy?
I think net zero or below right now. We don't have tangible benefits of our asylum policy anymore because I can hear Sarah. I didn't even need the microphone. I can hear Sarah sighing from here. But the overwhelming number of asylum seekers are not coming here to add as net contributors. They are coming here either to seek benefits or refuge from France, apparently. And I've been to France, and it's not that bad. So I don't think that there are very many reasons anymore for us to welcome people here. Now, what I will say is I go back to what Tom said about us being a very welcoming nation. Now, throughout all of our systems, our justice system, our immigration system, it was built on a principle based on a society that once was. Our societal values, the incumbent culture, has been dissolved somewhat, and as a result, the things that applied to that society previously are now being taken advantage of by people less scrupulous than those previous people within that community.
And the truth is, you can't properly integrate people in the volumes that we are seeing. So with illegal migration, then layering on top of that legal migration, there is no prospect of being able to properly support people, to be able to properly integrate them. That is, of course, hugely problematic, completely unacceptable. It's why the public has had enough. It's why you have to get on top of this issue in the Channel. You cannot continue to have people abusing our laws, coming here against
Australia. I might have to go as well.
Well, we will see. Still ahead on The Late Show Live.
Thank you.
He's back. President Biden has unleashed his fiercest attack on President Trump yet. Strong words from a man who needs directions to leave the stage. Also tonight,
we're living in more dangerous and volatile times than at any time in my life or in your life.
plans for a new fleet of destroyers have reportedly been scrapped in favour of drone motherships and autonomous warfare. Is Britain embracing the future or taking a dangerous risk? This is The Late Show Live, only on the People's Channel, GB News.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me. What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans? Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account. You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Lots of people have asked me why I'm doing this challenge, and partly it's personal. I'm so grateful to be here, to be strong enough to walk these hills.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live on the People's Channel, GB News. The Princess of Wales has spoken movingly about her cancer battle after completing the National Three Peaks Challenge. That's coming up shortly. But first, breaking news tonight, plans to replace the Royal Navy's ageing Type 45 destroyers have reportedly been dropped in favour of a new generation of drone-focused warships. Instead, ministers will invest in common combat vessels designed to operate alongside uncrewed systems as part of a so-called hybrid navy. The changes form part of the government's long-awaited defence investment plan, with growing concern over Russian activity in the Atlantic. So, is the future of modern warfare, or is this the future of modern warfare, I should say, or is Britain taking a gamble with its naval strength? With me now, the Chief Strategy Officer at the New Lines Institute, Azim Ibrahim, and Defence Analyst and former British Army Officer, Simon Diggins. Well, Simon, I will start with you. We've recently had two ministers associated with the armed forces resign because they did not have faith in the plans that this government has for the armed forces. Should we have any faith in this strategy here?
Good evening to you all. I think this is two things going on here. The first is an element of MOD spin. They're telling a story about, while there's been this small amount of additional money coming into the programme, basically having John Healey haven't resigned, they're then spinning about what the money's going to be spent on. The truth is we do need to start rethinking and reshaping our armed forces to take into account the lessons from Ukraine and to a lesser extent from the Middle East. So, I mean, that's one of the things that is important. And the fact that the Navy is one of the first to move into it is very much in line with the Chief of Naval Staff's attitude about how the Navy is going to develop. So there's an element of good news story about this, but we still have a requirement for a sufficient number of surface vessels. You're showing all your people at the moment, you're showing our fleet aircraft carriers. They need escort vessels. We're talking about frigates and destroyers to go with them. So it's important that there's been a bit of change here, and the money being spent on the drones or on these common combat vessels is important. But we mustn't lose sight of the fact we will still require crewed warships for the foreseeable future as well. And I think that's what's missing at the moment in terms of the picture. Basically, I don't think we've got enough money, and that's really the bottom line.
Azim, at the same time, I believe that the armed forces of this country are the 5th most funded out of any country in the world. There is a lot of money spent compared to most other nations. Is the problem funding, or is the problem that we're not spending the money as well as we could?
The reality is that the fundamental duty of any government is defence of the realm, and every single government since the end of the Cold War has essentially put defence on the chopping block and cut funding year after year, parliament after parliament. We spend over £60 billion a year on defence, but the reality is, according to the former Chief of Defence of the UK, that we can only field up to 10,000 troops out of a whole cohort of 73. And if you were to extrapolate that from the kind of casualties that we're seeing in Ukraine, the entirety of the British Army would be wiped out in 2 weeks. And you to extrapolate this and look at the Navy, we have 15 naval vessels in total, and out of that, only 3 or 4 are operational. The reality is that we have a substantial amount of funding. It is being very badly mismanaged and misspent. We have over 60,000 civil servants in the Ministry of Defence. Nobody has any idea, in fact, what they're actually doing. So I think it's really down to the fact that the entire system needs fundamentally restructuring, and to make us more suitable for the kind of modern warfare that we're going to be seeing. The reality is that there's lots of lessons to be learned from Ukraine, drone warfare. Even the NATO assessment indicates that by 2030, every environment, whether it's peace or high-intensity conflict, will be drone saturated. And so this is something that we really do have to look at.
Simon, you were about to make a point there.
Spot on. I mean, we waste a huge amount of money, and I think it's one of the challenges that we've got. I'm one of these people who argues for more money, but absolutely recognise that the MOD is very poor at producing good quality. And every single domain, whether it be air, sea or land, there are instances of equipment which are either not fit for purpose or didn't work, or so late as to almost be redundant, obsolescent before they come through. So there is a real challenge, and I think it's absolutely spot on that if we're going to give more money, more investment into defence, we also need to reform radically the defence procurement system and the structures which are going to organise that's a really major job.
And Azim, the justification often for increased spending is the growing threat of Russia. How serious do you think that threat is, not just within the continent, but to the United Kingdom?
These threats are all genuine. You've seen this since the Ukraine war. We have to prepare for every eventuality. That is the purpose of having a defence posture, of having a national security strategy and a military. In the eventuality that we were to actually go to war on the continent against a competitor like Russia, we will be very poorly equipped to actually last very long. The numbers simply do not lie, as I've articulated earlier. We are simply in no position whatsoever at the moment to actually take on an adversary like Russia. This is why in the past I have argued, on this channel, that we need to develop tactical nuclear weapons, because we simply have a recruitment crisis. We simply cannot build up the numbers anymore that we used to have in the UK military, and and it's just left as a shadow of what we were of our former self.
Bracing words. Simon, Azim, thank you for your time this morning. Still ahead on The Late Show Live, Donald Trump warns Iran could face annihilation as fighting resumes despite a recent ceasefire agreement. I feel like I've heard that before. Also on the show tonight,
flags, flag, flag, flags, flag.
Sir Keir Starmer has refused to fly the flag for England. That explosive controversy next. This is The Late Show Live, only on the People's Channel, GB News.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis.
In the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there.
With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live with me, Will Kingston. Still ahead, Ed Miliband wanted to announce a £400 million for rainforests. Yes, that is no joke, £400 million. We'll get stuck into that shortly. But first, let's delve into some of the main stories on the front of tomorrow's papers, starting with The Telegraph, which is reporting that Sir Keir Starmer has been accused of being a plastic patriot after failing to fly the Cross of St George outside number 10 for the World Cup. The Prime Minister has opted against flying the flag for group stage games in the Summer Cup competition, despite his predecessors displaying support for the Three Lions. Previous Prime Ministers flew the flag on match days during the group phase of the World Cup, while others insisted the flag remained flying across the entire tournament. Let's go to my panel now. Sarah, I'll start with you. We have seen different flags being displayed at 10 Downing Street. I seem to recall we had 10 Downing Street lit up with the Ukrainian flag. There's been pride flags over the years. Would it have really... Oh, there we are. We can see there, not just a flag, but a full-on lighting display for another country. Would it have really hurt to have put on the Cross of St George for the World Cup tournament?
No, it wouldn't. And I think that's why part of the reason he's not going to be our Prime Minister any longer. Starmer just doesn't get it. I mean, look, that's beautiful. Our support of Ukraine, what our forces have done, what Britain's done, actually, to defend both the Ukrainian territory against the Russian attack on a sovereign nation, and in doing so, protecting us. So this fly the flag nonsense, I mean, what is he so scared of? I don't understand the story at all. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't understand. Did he give a reason for why he didn't want to do that?
Not that I'm aware of. Paul, do you want to take a guess at why he may not be?
Damn flag, we're proud of it.
Yeah, well, he's not, Sarah. He's really not proud of it. He will say that flag is divisive. Now, the reason it's divisive is purely because of his politics. There's no other reason for it. He is both contributed to and is the reason for some of the biggest issues we see in societal division in Great Britain right now. And not feeling happy to fly the George Cross or the Union Jack outside number 10 Downing Street should be treated as treason. I can't think of any reason why he shouldn't be sent to the Tower, Sarah, can you?
No, I'm in complete agreement with you for once. Send them to the Tower. Starmer to the Tower. That's the new headline.
I can hear GB News viewers cheering at their television sets. Tom, he has previously said that this is a symbol of, or has been hijacked, I should say, by the far right. Do you think that the flag has become a symbol of division and on balance shouldn't be displayed?
It's completely wrong, isn't it? And to go directly to that point and past remarks that he's made, if he feels that way, isn't this a brilliant way of trying to wrestle the flag back? And as you mentioned, there's often flags flying above Downing Street. Previous Prime Ministers have insisted that this happens. This is a big national moment. We're a footballing nation. People love the great game. They want to have that national debate, that national conversation about it. We're all willing our boys on. I mean, just to be so tone deaf and out of touch with where public opinion on this is desperately miserable. And a few weeks ago on the channel, we were talking about the fact that Border Force staff had been told that they couldn't wear badges that were supporting the England football team. If I'd been the immigration minister, still, that just wouldn't be the case. This is a great opportunity for us to have that national conversation. People visiting our country should be able to, engage about it. It's fantastic, and I just find this so frustrating.
Simon, I used to live in the United States. I was always taken aback by the amount of backyards, or I should say front yards, that you would see a flag. What do you make of these flag wars that have taken place in the United Kingdom over the last 2 years?
It's inconceivable to me how this has taken over the public consciousness and the political class, that somehow the Cross of St. George, the symbol of England, which has led us into battle for 1,000 years, is now a racist, divisive symbol. It is the most ridiculous argument. As you say, Americans have flags in their front yards. We have flags over the stores. We have them over public offices. We have them on our trucks. Absolutely, there are people actually here now who start to think that our flag is divisive, but there's still a pretty fringe minority. And what's next? Are they going to say that the cross itself is divisive because it intimidates Muslims and they're uncomfortable, so we need to take those off
Well,
the
you
churches
guys aren't
and public
very comfortable
buildings?
with the call to prayer. I mean, you do it.
No, I'm not at all. I think it's disgraceful. I think the idea in Canada now, you have a city in Regina, Saskatchewan, where they have a call to prayer every Friday. It carries a kilometer and it goes on for a couple minutes. I think that's disgraceful because it's telling people to do a religious observance.
What?
Simon,
you're saying that people can't then criticise you for wearing a cross?
Simon, I believe...
Who am I answering?
Yeah, for me first. I believe it is Denmark. I may be wrong. I believe it is Denmark that's put forward a proposal to ban the call to prayer. Would you adopt that in the United Kingdom and the United States?
Yeah, I mean, not that people couldn't put out a call to prayer on a cell phone or do it in some way that only attracts people who are interested. But, they say, well, it's the same as church bells. No, church bells are just bells that make a sound. The call to prayer is calling the faithful to observe a religious tradition. And it's not just calling the faithful, it's calling everybody within earshot. And it's fine if you're in Saudi Arabia, if you're in Yemen, a country that is entirely Muslim. But when you're in a Western country, I do think it is wrong to broadcast a public call to prayer in a city or town where no one has a choice and no one can opt out. But it's probably coming soon to.
I want to get a right of reply from Sarah. Right of reply from Sarah.
Thank Thank you. I mean, well, first of all, I'm Muslim. I converted years ago. And Simon, that makes me so sad to hear because the call to prayer being done is so beautiful. It means so much. I heard that down the earpiece. It's all making sense now. Genuinely, I'm saying this from my heart, it makes me so sad because it is such an important part of our lives, the daily prayer. And I come from a Christian family. Obviously, I was born into a very Christian family. We have this debate a lot. Like, you can't pretend to protect religious freedoms and diversity for just one group. So you can't say Christians can't be told not to do this, but Muslims have to be.
No one's stopping Muslims.
Sarah, Simon,
but you don't
guys, I apologise. Guys, I apologise. I don't want to interrupt this conversation. It is fascinating, but we have to. More coming up in the next hour, ladies and gentlemen, including this.
Thank you.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there.
with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business. Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it? We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Live from London, this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. Britain's boomerang borders. You will not believe how many previously deported migrants have been recorded re-entering the UK since 2021. And breaking tonight, you or I could soon be deciding whether failed asylum seekers can stay in Britain.
Your situation is very similar. You know, you have people coming in, and I told the Prime Minister I would stop it, and it doesn't matter if you call out the military, it doesn't matter what means you use.
In other news, Catherine's Mountain of Hope. The Princess of Wales has spoken movingly about her cancer battle after completing the National Three Peaks Challenge.
Lots of people have asked me why I'm doing this challenge, and partly it's personal. I'm so grateful to be here, to be strong enough to walk these hills.
Brilliant stuff. Holyrood drama. The King has been drawn into a fresh political row after being made to sit through, well, a controversial performance, shall we say, at the Scottish Parliament.
Oh, you mean Darien, the new world, the shipbuilding?
Aye, the shipbuilding.
For the slaves.
Ugh. In other news, Biden unleashed. Joe Biden has launched his fiercest attack yet on Donald Trump, branding him a corrupt, narcissistic loser. Strong words from a man who still occasionally needs stage directions to leave the stage. Never gets old. I'm Will Kingston and this is The Late Show Live. Welcome back to The Late Show Live for another hour, ladies and gentlemen. Joining me once again in London is my panel, former Conservative Minister Tom Pursglove and GB News contributor Paul Cox. And in Washington, where a fascinating little debate was brewing before we had to go to a break, we have foreign correspondent Sarah Firth and Senior Research Fellow at the Heritage Foundation, Simon Hankinson. Thank you very much for joining me once again, team. And Sarah, I apologise for interrupting you as we had to go to the break at the end of the first hour, particularly as you were telling us about your faith in a very, very personal way. Please go on and as we talk about particularly that proposal from Denmark recently to ban the call to prayer and Simon's comments that he would adopt that proposal in the United States and the United Kingdom.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. I mean, that's very kind of you to give me a chance, because it is deeply personal. I converted at the end of 2023, but I'd been living in Istanbul for about, I think, 7 years before that. So I'd been learning a lot about the faith, and the call to prayer was something that personally, growing up in a very religious family, faith has always been a huge part of my upbringing, and I'm so grateful for that, and the Christian community. And so the Azan, the call to prayer, just for GB News viewers who maybe agree with Simon or have heard the call to prayer. I mean, in most places, it is beautiful. It's very poetic. And I just want to tell people that it can be jarring and disorientating, I think, if you don't understand it. But it's not a political statement. It's not a demand. It is a beautiful reminder for those who are of the Muslim faith, who want to pray 5 times a day. It's a call to prayer. It's a call to remind you of your faith. And, Britain, for all its troubles, religious freedom is a fundamental human right. And your religion and what you choose and your faith is something that I think we protect so well in Britain. We have our issues. Yes, there are issues. But I'm hugely proud to be a British Muslim. And I think that it's interesting even having debates like this, right? You've shown me a lot of respect, Simon, in allowing me to have my moment to talk about a very personal decision. So yeah, just again for GB News viewers, I know it can be quite divisive, but the call to prayer, as I said, the Azan, it's just a reminder to pray. And when you hear Allahu Akbar, that is God is great. We're celebrating God, it's our faith. And I know that it's been co-opted by various fundamental extremist groups and terrorists in the past. And that's terrifying. I've lived through it, I've reported it. But yeah, at its heart, faith it's not just a fundamental human right. It is deeply personal, deeply important. It guides my entire life and my family's life. And I'm sure that's the same for many GB viewers at home who can understand just how important faith is. And it's worth protecting, whatever your faith.
Paul, I want to bring you in here. I just want to bring Paul in here. Paul, would you be happy hearing the call to prayer outside your house every morning?
No. No, I wouldn't, no. Look, I'm a Portsmouth fan and we sing Play Up Pompey at Fratton Park, which is great and peaceful and wonderful. If I go and sing that in St Mary's, which is Southampton's ground, they take it a totally different way. And what we've got here is just that. We've got a Christian country, and we are either a Christian or we are a secular country. We're nothing in between. We're not this secular country that King Charles even would have us believe that we are. We're not. We're a Christian country, and as a result, I think that it's right that we respect that. I'm a Christian, and I don't want to hear the Muslim call to prayer outside of my door, particularly if it's too early and I've been working late at GB News.
You can stick to hearing all your drunks and taxi drivers yelling.
Not where I
no
live.
No problem at all.
Where on earth do you think I live, Sarah? You can't hear that. That's 4 miles down the end of my drive.
Tom, I want to bring you in. Do you have a problem with Tom, do you have a problem with this?
My understanding of it is that often the recital is done indoors in a very limited number of places, and that actually the sort of permits and licences that permit this are very sparing. I can't say that it's something that I've ever heard in the UK, but I know...
Argue on the principle, though. Argue on the principle for me. Let's say that there are communities, and there are communities in England where you do hear the call to prayer in the open, as rare as it may be. Do you have a problem with that in principle?
I think at particular points where, for example, there are religious festivals, in some communities I think that there is a case for that. In the same way that, you know, church bells would ring for Christian festivals, and we see that happen around the year, but it does need to be appropriate to the circumstances in any given location.
So you're putting the Muslim faith and the Christian faith on equal footing in this country?
I respect the fact that different people have different beliefs and different faiths, and that is something that is important to them. People wish to be able to practice that. But for example, Nick Timothy, the Conservative Shadow Justice Secretary, got a lot of criticism when he raised some concerns about a particular event that had taken place. I think what is important is that where you see religious activity happen, that it should be done in a way that is compatible with our values as a country. And for example, in that particular case, there was segregation of women from the men in a public space. That, to me, would be completely unacceptable because that is not compatible with our values.
Simon, your response to what you've heard?
Wow, how much time do I have? Look, why is it a one-way street? Name me a single thriving Christian minority in a Muslim country. You can't. They're persecuted in Pakistan, they're persecuted in Egypt and shrinking and dying out. If you're in Saudi Arabia, can you go pray as a Christian in public? No. And yet in our Western cities, we have women who are clad head to toe in a burqa, and we were just discussing that, and I was asking Sarah why she's not veiled, because according to the verse from the Quran that I've read, you're supposed to be covered at all times. So I don't get this one-way street. There was a woman in Oxford, I think she wrote an article in The Spectator recently saying she went to buy a kebab from a vendor and was told, come back when you're better covered because you're dressed disgracefully. So bit by bit, they're chipping away at our values, at our freedoms, and I'm all for people being able to worship freely in the synagogue, in the mosque, in the Gurdwara, in the temple, whatever. But what I'm against is public demonstrations of control and coercion that force people to accept that there's a new sheriff in town and this is not your land anymore, your town, your street.
Well, all I would say to GB viewers at home is listen to the rhetoric of the both of us talking about faith. And I think that speaks for itself, frankly, because Islam has taught me to embrace the idea of unity, of acceptance, of love, of peace. And that is when I'm talking to people about their religion and their faith, Simon, that is so deeply important and personal, and our values in Britain. I am so glad that most of our panel hold the opinions that they do, because I just think you can look at the way that we're both talking about it, and that's the example that it sets. One of us is a Christian here, and I've converted to Islam, and I think you can see who the more tolerant of this conversation is.
And you have no problem with women wearing the full niqab because their husbands tell them to?
Well, first of all, I have a problem. You're saying men in general telling women what to do, I'd have a problem with. But for the record,
one at a time. One at a time.
You didn't ask me. He didn't ask me why I wasn't wearing the veil. He said it was disgusting under my religion to not wear the veil.
No.
Well, if I may, Sarah, if I may, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but why aren't you wearing a burqa or a hijab?
Honestly, from the heart, it's a journey. I mean, it sounds cliche, but it is. It's something that I will consider further down the road. I'm obviously raising my children who are British, American, Turkish Muslims. So there's a lot to navigate. And it's made easier. You know, when I go back home, by my incredible family, who, as I said, are devout Christians, and I went to all the Christian camps growing up, they just, you know, with open arms and curiosity, embrace it. And the reason I'm not veiled is because I haven't got to the point where I know enough to make that choice yet.
Sure. Do you accept Simon's point that some women wear those garments under duress?
Absolutely. I mean, I accept the argument, and I'd say that widen it. You know, in every religion, in every walk of life, there are women that are being exploited, abused, coerced by men. And I'm absolutely for challenging that whenever and wherever that happens. And again, for the record, that's just not what being a Muslim is about. It's not what Islam is about. It is a religion of peace and faith. And again, you know, that's how... It's been life-changing for me. So I hope with that in mind and with the grace of religious tolerance that, you know, it's a really interesting conversation to have, especially here with this panel and with GB News viewers. So thank you for it, Simon.
Paul, I'll go to you.
Look, it would be remiss for me not to say that it might well be, in your mind, Sarah, the religion of peace. But in our country in the last 20 years or so, it's been the religion of death, terrorism, bombs, dead children. Allahu Akbar is not a peaceful shout in this country. If you're on the tube and you hear someone shout Allahu Akbar, then you are taking cover because of everything we've seen from the Muslim religion. Now, they might be extremists and a very small minority, but what I never hear is the Muslim community tackling them directly and saying, and what are they doing? Otherwise, if I come out as a Christian and a white bloke from the UK, they just think I'm racist in some way. So maybe, Sarah, someone like you has got to stand up and tell these young men that like to blow themselves up in the Manchester Arena that that is not the way of the West.
Sarah, right of reply?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with it. You know, I am so deeply saddened as well that a phrase like Allahu Akbar, God is great, in the UK has become associated with fear. And that's as horrendous to Muslims as it is to people of all faiths who aren't extremists or haven't been radicalised. I think the UK has a huge problem with radicalisation. It's something that I have reported a lot about from my early days as a journalist when people were travelling to Syria, young Muslims, and coming back heavily radicalised.
To be clear, you mean radical Islam?
Yes, I mean radical Islam. There are obviously, in any religion, and as Christians will know, there are fundamentalist extremist versions that do not stick to the meaning and ethos of the faith and what the faith is about.
Sarah, at the same time, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but 75% of all the people on MI5's terror watch list are radical Islamists. They're not radical Christians, they're certainly not Buddhists or Hindus. There's a disparity between the religions here, surely.
Sorry, what list is that, Simon?
It's Will, by the way. I believe Simon is next to you. But I believe, and I'm happy to be proven wrong, but my understanding is that 75% of all people on MI5's terror watch list, as in people who have been identified as terrorists in this country, are radical Muslims. The vast majority of radical religious figures in this country appear to come from the Muslim faith. I would suggest there's a disparity between the religions. It's not just a both sides issue across Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity and Islam.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to that because I need to look at the exact figures. First of all, Will, I so apologise. It's because Simon's next to me in my ear every 5 minutes. But look, I think we were talking about defence spending earlier, right, and the issues in Britain at the moment, and that is focused on, you know, our defence from outside threats. And I absolutely think that we need to be spending a huge amount more, and I've been, you know, very, very interested in watching the conversation happening in both President Trump's first and second terms with how like nail on the head he's got it when he's given his warnings to NATO allies and to Britain to up their defence spending. It's not the time to be messing around. And likewise, when you say about watch lists, I don't know the exact list that you're looking at, but have we got an extremism problem in the UK? I'd argue that yes, as a Muslim, as a practicing Muslim who believes in what Islam is about, which is peace and unity, I would want to ensure that we tighten up those areas as well. And so my question is about the funding when it comes to counter-terrorism, about where we're at with the measures that we're using, because I know for a fact some of the measures do not manage to stop the radicalisation from spreading.
I take those points, but I just think you're being a bit disingenuous in saying that the overwhelming majority of radical religious figures in this country are not coming from radical Islam. Again, you know, you can...
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
Go on. So my suggestion would be that the vast majority of radical religious extremism comes from the Muslim faith in this country. Not all by any means, but from the figures that we have, and particularly, as I said, from the people who have been identified by intelligence services in this country as being terrorists, the overwhelming majority of them, I promise you, and you can look it up, are radical Muslims. My question is, why is there that disparity between Islam and other religions?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to that. I think, again, Will, to argue with you on that point, I'd need to look at the breakdown in the UK, and I don't, you know, I openly accept I don't know it off the top of my head. But I think what I would say is that you're tying together, you're lumping together people like myself and my family who are practicing Muslims and for who Islam is our faith, and extremist terrorists who kill people. I've been there on the ground reporting in the aftermath of so many terrorist attacks. Manchester was the tip of the iceberg. The London terror attack. I've been on the ground in Syria myself. I've been on the ground in Libya. So I know what terrorism and extremism and radicalisation looks like up close. And that was, you know, some of those stories were before I've converted. And I really want the audience to know this. It is a minority of the faith. And I wouldn't even consider them Muslims. But what I want to say is this. In the aftermath of every single terrorist attack, do you know what you see on the ground, Will, when you go and report it? You see people of the Muslim religion, you see people who are Muslims gathered and helping. And I think in the case of the London bombing, there was someone who gave their life or was badly injured. But so what that is separate the two issues. In every religion, you've got people acting out of hatred and co-opting the name of that religion as their justification for carrying out their evil deeds. That is not what Islam is. So the majority of Muslims around the world, once again, guys, I'm saying this to the whole audience listening back in Britain, when you're hearing Allahu Akbar, please don't be afraid. Go to your local mosque, meet some of the people. It means God is great. They are faithful, loving, incredible people.
Sarah, I'm certainly not saying that all Muslims are radical Muslims, but what I'm saying is, and let me phrase this another way, why do we not see radical Buddhists blowing up buildings in this country, but we do see radical Muslims? There's obviously a difference between the religions, and I'm just curious to know what it is.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I'm curious to know how you stop that radicalisation as well. I would counter slightly that I think, you know, history would show that in every religion. I don't think the Muslims would be, we're one of the newest religions. I don't think we'd be in the majority at all of crimes carried out against other humans in the name of religion. I mean, for as long as there's been religion, people have committed horrendous acts in its name, and that is, you know, anyone of faith, any person of faith knows that that is not what being faithful is about. And not what God is about. You know, we're all of the Abrahamic religions, most of us. But I would on your point of radicalisation and terrorism, I want to say again, I'm not disputing at all. If you're saying that those are what the figures show, I mean, there is no question in my mind, because I've been on the ground again in the aftermath. I had to see those families whose kids had died. So I remember vividly the impact that individuals like that acting in the name of a religion have on a community. And it's devastating. And I've seen the people who can help and who do help. And they're of all walks of life and all walks of faith as well.
Well, we'll round this out by saying strength and love to the victims' families of those atrocities. Hopefully we will see less death and violence in the future. Let's go now to the Princess of Wales in a more uplifting story. She has completed the Three Peaks Challenge in aid of the hospital where she was treated for cancer, describing it as a chance to explore life beyond diagnosis and to give something back.
Lots of people have asked me why I'm doing this challenge, and partly it's personal. I'm so grateful to be here, to be strong enough to walk these hills. But more importantly, it's to give something back and acknowledge really all the incredible work going on up and down this country. I've met some incredible people, those people who are living with and beyond cancer. And I know personally how difficult that journey is. And I really wanted to use this opportunity as my way of contributing to all the wonderful work that's going on, and in particular to support the Royal Marsden Cancer Charity, an organisation very dear to me, but who do extraordinary work.
With me now is the chair of Republicans Overseas UK, friend of the show, Greg Swenson. Greg, great to see you again. What do you make of this, well, remarkable effort from the Princess of Wales?
Yeah, absolutely. And it shows a couple of things. First of all, good to see you, Will. And it's nice to be on a lighter topic, not like the one I've been listening to for 20 minutes. So it's nice. It's a nice change of pace for me to not be in a really, heated topic. And look, this is just good news, right? I mean, I think the country is thrilled. Both the UK as well as the US are thrilled that the Princess of Wales is doing well and is sort of, for lack of a better word, beat cancer. It also shows that the Princess of Wales, as well as most of the royal family, are truly working royals. They're not just enjoying the spoils of being in the royal family. They are really dedicated to their charities. Even Harry does some great work for the Halo Trust, which I'm a big supporter of. And think about Princess Diana back in the 90s with that iconic photo of her wearing the protective headgear while helping remove mines from a minefield in Angola. And so they really do great work. And I think so much of the coverage of the royal family in the U.S. is usually the same as the UK. It's usually gossip. It's usually the tabloids. So especially here with Harry and the Princess of the West Coast, I call it the California, the Princess of California. But I do think that this is a moment where she's struck a really good balance of keeping certain things private. When she was going through cancer treatments and was going through that, it's a personal thing, and she needed her privacy, but also understanding that they are public figures, and that's part of being a royal, part of being a working royal, is you have to address these things in public. And I think she's done a really good job of balancing that.
Greg, I took those opening remarks as a challenge, so I'm going to throw a thorny religious question at you. The King recently has come out and said that he is not just the defender of the faith anymore, as in the Church of England. He's now the defender of all faiths in a multi-faith society. Many Christians see that as being a betrayal. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, we're in a time warp. Are we in 2020 or 2021 again when DEI was, at its peak? And I think, it's a shame to see that, the traditions of this great country sort of being, pushed to the side for the secular focus or obsession with diversity, equity, and inclusion when he is head of the Church of England. So it's disappointing to see that sort of bow to DEI. I mean, look, again, as you were discussing and with the panel in the prior segment, okay, we're all for freedom of religion. The United States in many ways was founded on that premise. And so that's okay. But, this obsession with political correctness is what we called it 10 years ago. Now we call it DEI. It's really sad to see, all that news this weekend at the same time where you had the Princess of Wales doing such a, accomplishing something, personally with, reaching the 3 peaks, but also reaching out to the people and sort of, welcoming other people who have suffered through cancer or suffered from cancer. And so, good for her. But no, I don't think it's a great moment for the King's sort of bow to DEI. It's, enough's enough.
There you are. We managed to drag you into more controversial, murky waters by the end there. Greg Swenson, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Will.
Of course, let me know your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. gbnews.com/your say. Still ahead, though, on The Late Show Live. Donald Trump warns Iran it could face annihilation as fighting resumes despite a recent ceasefire agreement. Again, I think I've heard that before. Also tonight, at what age should someone be criminally responsible? Because lawyers are pushing for a major overhaul of Britain's justice system. This is The Late Show Live on the People's Channel, GB News. But first tonight, a performance at the opening of the Scottish Parliament has sparked controversy after critics claimed it contained anti-British themes in front of the King.
All over the world and you'll meet a Scot. How's that, eh? Always on the right side of history, we were.
Oh, yeah? You mean the British Empire?
Not that side of history, the other side of history.
Oh, you mean the plantations?
No, not that side of history, the other side of history.
Oh.
The theatrical piece, As Others See Us, commissioned for the ceremony, explored Scotland's history and identity, but opposition politicians say it was inappropriate for a state occasion. Was this artistic expression tactless or an insult to the King and Britain's history? Joining me now, my panel, Tom Pursglove, Paul Cox, Sarah Firth and Simon Hankinson. Tom, I'll start with you. I'm all for freedom of speech, but was this the time and the place for that particular display?
Definitely not. And as someone who's a former government minister, the one thing that is sort of drummed into you consistently is that you should never drag the palace into the politics of the day, and that is very much a red line in terms of your conduct and the things that you do. And it just felt to me to be really inappropriate. I think that it sort of generated division that just didn't need to happen at a really important national moment, that opening of the Scottish Parliament for its new session. And it also comes on a bit of a week where we saw the nonsense in the House of Commons chamber with the swearing of the oath by the new SNP MP. If I'd been Mr. Speaker, and I hate to criticise him, I would have been asking her to repeat the exercise and to do it again, because if you don't like it, why are you standing for the House of Commons? And I think there are many SNP MPs who've been elected over the years who've gone about doing that in a really respectful way, despite any particular political views that they might have. And I think one thing that is encouraging about what happened at the Scottish Parliament this week with this particular theatrical piece is that we have seen politicians from across the political divide come out and say that this just wasn't right or appropriate, and I tend to agree with them.
Paul, your thoughts?
Look, if you go to the Edinburgh Festival this summer, and I do recommend you go, I've performed there a few times, you will see this type of nonsense all over the shop. This is stock and trade for the progressive writer, comedian, etc. It's a bit of a nonsense, but people like to clap along and say, "Oh yes, aren't we so marvellous?" I also see this as a problem with devolution as well. That's the Scottish Parliament there. The Scottish Parliament inviting the King to witness that. Now, there's a debate, I think, to be had whether the King would actually be offended by that. He probably wrote the play, knowing this King. But I do think it's far too far. We don't need to do this. And by the way, the way people see us, it's not the way people see us, it's the way we tell people to see us. And we just keep doing it to create this kind of ecosystem of shame. I don't buy into it. And there are many things to be proud of in our history, and we should be proud of them.
Tom mentioned that performance from the SNP MP as she took the oath the other day. Let's have a look at it.
I take this oath only so that I can serve the people of Arbroath and Broughty Ferry. My first allegiance is, and always will be, the sovereign people of Scotland. I do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to the law, so help me God.
had a mental blank there. The SNP MP was Lara Bird, although I believe that is not her full name that she has. It's a name that she's chosen to take on, a bridged version of it. Sarah, double-barrel question for you. A, did you think that was appropriate? And B, did you think the performance from the lads in front of the King was appropriate?
What I want to say is I think that the King has got a pretty good sense of humour. You've got to remember the family that he came from, and I was actually just taking a little trip down memory lane and looking up some of Prince Philip's, the late Prince Philip's, rest in peace, his famous sayings, and there's a lovely one that's
go on.
Don't to pedology. It's the science of opening your mouth, Will, and putting your foot in it, which, as Prince Philip said, and I attest to too, I have been practicing for many, many years, and I think that probably
yes, I know
applies to all of those performing it. But yeah, I think the King would have a sense of humour about something like that. I don't.
And how about crossing your fingers during the oath?
Crossing your fingers during the oath?
Mm.
Don't take the oath. That's ridiculous.
Then you can't take office.
Then don't take office. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have agreement. This is what this show is all about, finding consensus. Simon, onto you. Well, I take that point, but on the first display that we saw from those kids, it goes to show that there is perhaps a broader feeling amongst younger generations of a lack of patriotism. Look, creatives have always been a bit loony like this, but I would suggest that there may be a broader bow that can be drawn here around a lack of patriotism and a lack of pride in this country's history. Am I drawing too long a bow there?
No, I went to a Scottish university and I did drama there. I never went to the Edinburgh Fringe because I had better things to do in the summer, like work. But the level to which Scotland and England have abased themselves, the level of self-hatred among the left wing and a lot of young people is really depressing to me. Benjamin Franklin got his doctorate at St Andrews. This university's been around since before Columbus set sail. The Scots were the engine of the British Empire, helped us move all over the world, commerce on an unimaginable scale, invented everything from the television to rocket ships, and somehow today we have these two morons in black t-shirts talking about how crap it all was, and then the woman who refused to take the oath. I'm sorry, yeah, we agree there. The Act of Union 1707, as I remember it, says that King Charles is now the king of the United Kingdom, which includes Scotland, and if you don't want to accept that reality, then move somewhere else, or certainly don't go into Parliament.
Agree entirely with the sentiment. I'm actually not entirely sure about the lower tiers of language violations with Ofcom, but on the off chance that everyone did have a problem with Simon's language there, I wholeheartedly apologise. But nonetheless, I agree with his sentiment entirely. A spokesman for the Scottish Parliament has said, as others see us, was a theatrical performance by young people exploring issues around culture and identity. Our program for the opening ceremony included, as in previous years, a number of performances from different organisations across Scotland. Still ahead on The Late Show Live, Ed Miliband wanted to announce a, brace yourselves, £400 million or investment for rainforests. Yes, £400 million. Also tonight...
Thank you.
Attaboy Joe. President Biden has unleashed his fiercest attack on President Trump yet. Strong words from a man who, as you can see, isn't quite sure how to find his way off a stage. This is The Late Show Live, only on the People's Channel, GBNews.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. The last sort of hot days was yesterday. It is going to be a bit of a muggy start for a few people this morning, but the fresher air is starting to move in and we will have some fresher nights to come as well. The mugginess is going to be across the southeast this morning. Temperatures overnight around 20 degrees, so another tropical night for a few people. But otherwise, this band of cloud is moving that humidity out the way, and that cloud will lift through the afternoon and start to break up, leaving some nice nice sunshine for much of the UK, and look at those temperatures, a lot lower than what we saw over the last few days, around the mid to high 20s. It will still be hot in a few places, but again, a lot lower than what we saw over Friday and Saturday. Now for the rest of the evening, a nice evening to come. And like I said, temperatures still hot in a few places, mostly across East Anglia through this afternoon. And again, Northern Ireland seeing a little bit more in the way of some cloud and a few showers across Scotland. Some of these could be blustery, and we could see some windier conditions across those Northern Isles as well as we end the weekend. But through the overnight, it is going to remain mostly dry for England and Wales. Those showers continuing across Scotland, but it is going to be a much more comfortable night to come. A lot lower humidities, and those temperatures are going to fall away as well. The minimum temperatures are still going to be around the mid to low teens, but like I say, it's the humidities that are going to make it a lot more comfortable for a few people for the overnight period and to start the new week as well. As we start Monday then, it is going to be a pleasant start, plenty of bright sunny skies, a bit more in the way of cloud out towards the west for Wales, the southwest and northern England, and some patchy cloud for Northern Ireland as well. A few showers across Scotland, but in that sunshine it will feel rather pleasant. Temperatures around those mid to low 20s, which is what we would expect for the time of year.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. Former President Joe Biden has launched a fresh attack on Donald Trump, branding him a narcissistic loser during a speech to Democratic supporters.
Look, it's not just his deliberate distortion and destruction of NATO and choosing Putin as over American allies, or the fact that he's diminished our standing in the eyes of the world more than any president in history has. It's not just his vanity projects, tearing down the east wing of the White House, making room for his ballroom, putting his name on the Kennedy Center, building an arch in his own honor, even hiring his own pool guy to fix the reflecting pool. Whoa, what a loser.
About 75% of those words were coherent. I am surprised and impressed. Will rhetoric such as that, if you can understand it, help, my producer is ahead of me, help Democrats or simply energise President Trump's supporters? With me now, Republican commentator Thomas Corbett-Dillon and journalist and my old sparring partner, Jonathan Liss. Jonathan, you've said several times on GB News how much of a fan you are of Donald Trump. I imagine you would disagree with Biden wholeheartedly?
No, well, I applaud your use of irony there, Will, but the Americans might not get it. But yes, I do in fact agree with everything that Joe Biden said. And it's a little bit rich of you to talk about coherence when Trump is barely coherent in any of his public statements these days, which is actually a contrast from 10 years ago. And I say this actually without a party political spin. You look at Trump over the years, his mental decline is incredibly apparent. You look at the interviews he was giving on 60 Minutes or to Barbara Walters or whatever 40 years ago. You may have disagreed with him, but he was clever, he was coherent, he was engaging. Even 10 years ago, he was sharper than now. Now you can listen to him, or you can read a transcript of his interviews, and you don't know exactly what he said. So I don't think that you can really pull up Biden for a lack of coherence. And in that speech, everything he said was true. I defy you to list one thing he said that wasn't true, one criticism he made of Trump that wasn't fair. Clearly, this guy is a raging narcissist. He didn't even mention the fact that Trump has literally just put himself on his face on a new US passport. That is unprecedented. There's a US mint is putting his image on a coin. That is unprecedented for a living president. He wants to be on a new $250 bill note to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the US. We'll wait and see if that actually gets stopped. And of course, there's the Trump Kennedy Center as well. And that's not even talking about the corruption that Biden was talking about as well, which is just completely off the scale and out of control.
Jonathan, I want to bring Thomas in here, and 2 questions, Thomas. A, is Trump suffering from cognitive decline? And B, what do you make of these, well, you know, some people have said vanity projects that Jonathan has called out?
Well, yeah, you know, it's obviously quite funny living in DC because most of those things that Biden called out are things that are happening in DC, and everyone in this city is in agreement that the city is now much better. Trump has done great work in this city, and building those things, building monuments, these are things that make this city great, turning the fountains back on, repairing everything in DC. But look, there's a big thought process in DC around Biden now that, you know, it's kind of a sympathy feeling. We know that he's not the one writing these speeches. You know, they're wheeling him out there, you know, telling him what to say. He's reading the teleprompter. You know, this is not coming from him. He was used by the Obama admin as, you know, a sort of puppet president for 4 years and did all these crazy things. It wasn't really him. So a lot of people
Thomas, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
An older guy who's struggling on. I mean, there's stories he can't even afford to fund his own presidential library. So it's not.
Thomas, can I interject for a second? Because I agree with you on all that. Everyone can see that Biden was losing it, but I want to get your response to Jonathan's suggestion that Trump is now losing it.
No, I think that's ridiculous. I mean, the guy's 80 years old, you know, and he's pretty with it. You can see him talking most of these things. He's certainly nothing like Biden. He could hold his own in a debate. Biden was very, very struggling. We know visible signs of this. Yes, he's an 80-year-old man. Sometimes he's tired in meetings or whatever. But, you know, this guy's still with it. And his schedule is crazy. Remember, when we just had that UFC fight here in DC, we all went to bed that night. We woke up, the president was in France. You know, he left the UFC, got on Air Force One, flew to the G7. This is a schedule that not many people at 50 years old can keep up, let alone 80 years old. So I think it's a ridiculous accusation to level at the president. He is very, very fit and he's very active. It's quite impressive for a man his age.
Jonathan, right of reply.
Yeah, I mean, look, the final most essential command was to ignore the evidence to your eyes and ears, and I really commend your tenacity in doing that, because this is, you know, just anyone can see, and it's not like you can roll your eyes all you want. It's not a party political point. You can agree with Trump and accept that his mind is in decline, that he's falling asleep during the day. That shouldn't be happening. He's not sleeping at night. He's sort of tweeting out the most ridiculous build, 60 tweets a night sometimes.
Yeah, but Jonathan, he's always done that.
Memes, all this kind of stuff. But really, this is not the substance. And I notice that you focused your answer on Biden because you had absolutely nothing to say about the quality of what Biden was saying, about the actual substance of what he was saying, about Trump putting himself on every building he can get his hands on, his photograph all over DC. How is that making DC better? You know it isn't, but you can't address the substance because you know you don't have an argument. And that's not even to begin the corruption argument. Just today, Trump's sons standing to make tens, maybe over $100 million from a minerals deal with the Kazakhs, which Trump personally signed over, and that's obviously, you know, in addition to when the UAE government gave sort of $500 million in return for sort of Nvidia shares, which were returned soon afterwards. That's Trump's attempt to pull off $1.6 billion, I think,
Jonathan,
of taxpayers' money in order to potentially pay off January 6th rioters. This is naked corruption on a scale that we have never seen in the United States before.
Thomas, response to the accusation that the Trump administration is corrupt.
Well, I just think it's ridiculous. I mean, if you want to go into corruption, you look at what Biden was doing with Ukraine and you know, deals in China. There's corruption in all the presidencies. But the question here, as you're saying he's falling asleep in meetings. Fine, you know, where we might have seen him do that, but look at what he's doing to the country. Look at what his administration is doing. This country is doing amazingly. If you compare what is happening in the US to what's happening in the UK is an embarrassment. And you know what? A lot of people have realized that when they've come over here, the England fans have come for the World Cup, and they've just seen what an amazing country this is, how rich the people of this country is. You know, if the UK was a state, it would be the poorest state in America, poorer than Mississippi. The UK is in a terrible situation. And yes, the president might not be, he's an 80-year-old guy. He's obviously not as, you know, with it when he was 50, but his administration are doing great things. The country is growing massively. They're investing all across the country. Meanwhile, England is being left behind, and when anyone complains, their first thing is to censor everyone. And we've lost another prime minister. The US is in much better shape than the UK. So, fine, we'll let him off if he's having a nap at a meeting every now and then. The guy's 80. But the administration are doing great stuff here.
Will has invited you. You're doing the North Korea routine is wonderful. You should apply for a job as a newsreader on Fox News. But really, you have failed to address any of the points that Will has put to you about either the narcissism or the corruption. That is what Biden was talking about. He wasn't even getting into the substance of the US economy. And we can have a conversation about that because inflation is going through the roof. And you just had an incredibly unpopular war, which is still ongoing, of course, which is still sending prices skyrocketing. And that's not even to mention the insider trading, which was likely been happening at the very heights of the administration before and after those new deals and new announcements were made about potential deals with Iran or not deals with Iran. That's being investigated by members
Jonathan,
of Congress.
I'm sorry to interrupt you because we've covered the corruption angle. I want to cover these different projects that Trump is initiating in Washington, D.C., which are around the 250th birthday for the United States. That arch, for example, which I don't believe he is building in his own honour. I think he said that this is for the 250th. It's apparently not going to be called the Trump Arch. Thomas said earlier that these are necessary projects in order to reinvigorate Washington DC, but also to promote American greatness. Surely that's something which is appropriate at the 250th anniversary.
Are you asking that to me or to Thomas?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, well, look, if you believe that this is about the United States in any way, I have an arch to sell you, Will. Clearly, this is about Trump elevating himself as he always does. And again, I just can't understand why people who support Trump can't say, yeah, you know what? The guy's a massive narcissist and it's embarrassing. You can't bring yourself to do that. And I don't know why. Is it a cult? How much Kool-Aid have you actually drunk?
But Jonathan, they're all narcissists. Obama was a narcissist. They're all narcissists.
His name to the Kennedy Center, appending his name to the Kennedy Center, it's just deeply embarrassing. Basically prizing the Nobel Peace Prize out of the hands of Maria, Machado, I can't remember her name. That's incredibly embarrassing as well. It's like the 4-year-old who always needs to win the class prize because he's so profoundly insecure. Why does the president need to be on the currency? Why does the president need to be on the passport? What is this profound human frailty coming from? That's not talking about the policy. I don't understand why people who support Trump politically can't at least say, yes, it's embarrassing that he needs to impose himself on public life in this way time and time again.
We'll leave this debate here, gents. Although just before you do go, Jonathan, I've got your good friend and colleague Paul Cox alongside me, and he wants to interject in this debate because he thinks I'm offering too much balance and being too moderate.
Good evening, Jonathan. How are you doing? Thanks for joining us, by the way, from your Berlin pleasure dungeon. It's good for you to just take that extra time. I think you have a problem with Trump. Genuinely, I think that maybe you probably ought to seek some support. And, you know where I am. You can pick up the phone at any time, Jonathan, and I will help you through this difficult time.
Yeah, do you think you've got Trump derangement syndrome, Jonathan?
I think that the only person on this panel who doesn't have it is me, because I see Trump fairly and objectively. Paul, you have my number. We can talk this through privately, I'd say, when I'm not in Berlin or in my pleasure dome.
Do you agree with this stuff, Paul?
I don't know. I mean, if I say on live television that I agree with Jonathan Liss, my broadcasting career is over. But I might get a job on Channel 4, I suppose.
Come on. Paul, you know what you said in private. And Paul, I have to give you credit. You actually are a balanced person, because in private, at least, you do acknowledge the guy's a complete lunatic.
That has never been the case, Jonathan.
Your bread sputters.
That's never been the case, you cheeky sausage.
Yeah. The breaking the rules of the green room there. Jonathan, thank you very much. Great to chat to you as always. We're going to go to our wider panel now. Simon, I'll start with you in DC. Do you think that these range of initiatives from Trump as he approaches the end of his second term, putting his face on the $250 bill, the reflecting pool, the passport, limited edition passport that we covered yesterday, which is a heck of a design. Do you think this stuff is becoming of the President of the United States? States?
Well, first of all, he's not approaching the end of his mandate. He's not even halfway through his four-year second term. So there's a lot of work to be done. And to me, these things are distractions. Yes, the president loves to see his name in lights. He loves bling. He loves UFC fights. So do a lot of Americans. I don't care. I really don't. I don't care if there's a passport. I may even get one for fun. Money, putting your head on the money, I think there's some statutory limits about that. But to me, this is all a distraction from the work that needs to be done. So I pay little attention, and I try to concentrate on the things that I can actually comment on.
Yeah, well, Sarah, what would you say to the point that many people, that this is all basically a troll from Trump, in that he knows that Liberals will go absolutely crazy about it, and then really he gets what he wants. He gets Liberal outrage, which has always fueled his base. You know, what do you make of this as a political strategy?
Well, first of all, I want to know if that Liberal helpline that has been offered is extended to us over here in Washington, D.C. The rates might be a little higher. But we, look, there is a serious point to be made here. And actually, at the start of the week, I was down at the Reflecting Pool reporting on the controversy. For those at home who are watching who don't know, one of this, celebrating America's 250th anniversary, President Trump went over budget. I think it was $14.7 million, revamped and repainted the Reflecting Pool, which is part of the Lincoln Memorial. And he did that because he wanted it to be American flag blue and crystal clear. That was what the administration said. So it was almost an amusing story until I got down there and I looked in the water. And it's had an algae bloom, so it's gone a weird colour, and that's predictable. We've spoken to experts in the days since, and the conditions here in DC are so humid. I don't know if people back home do know that. It's horrendous weather. I know you've got it very hot there in the UK as well right now. But the point is, the paint is peeling. The algae bloom has happened, 14.7 million spent. And here is my problem. This is where I don't find it funny or amusing or Trump being Trump. The administration trying to insist at first, when people raised this issue, that the water was crystal clear. Well, everyone's got eyes. I mean, look at it. It was, and do you know what it made me think of? It's so interesting this conversation's happening on the back of that Biden clip that you played, because I was going, again, I jotted down like a funny aside. In the 2024 presidential debate, you have President Trump saying, I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. You guys have already all made that point, in the audio. You can't really understand Biden very well. President Biden, President Trump, they're completely different men, completely different approaches. Again, I would just say to people watching, look at their track records and the kind of lives they've lived and men they are, right? So you've got President Biden on one hand, a lifetime of resilient public service to Americans, and President Trump, on the other hand, a very successful, in some regards, businessman. So he's doing what businessmen do and making his deals that makes him lots of money. What I have a particular issue with is the administration around President Trump that he has at the moment, which include people who outright lie to the American public. And that is no more... the example of it is the Reflecting Pool.
Sure. I want to get Tom's thoughts before we get a break.
Yeah, I mean, I'd argue that as a UK, we could learn quite a lot, actually, in terms of delivery and getting stuff done in the way that Donald Trump is. You don't have to agree with all of it to admire the sort of can-do and the determination and the flooding the zone tactic that has proven to be so effective. And, rather like when people personally call Nigel Farage names and don't focus on the substance of policy, I think it only serves to strengthen him. I think it's a completely bonkers tactic that Democrats pursue. And good on him if he wants to do various good things that help to commemorate that 250th anniversary. That's about national pride.
We'll be covering Trump more in the third hour. Still ahead on The Late Show Live, ladies and gentlemen. France has blamed the United States for their deadly heat wave, but also tonight...
Am I tough enough? Hell yes, I'm tough enough.
That man there wanted to give £400 million to rainforests instead of defence. That wild story coming your way on The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. The last sort of hot days was yesterday. It is going to be a bit of a muggy start for a few people this morning, but the fresher air is starting to move in and we will have some fresher nights to come as well. The mugginess is going to be across the southeast this morning. Temperatures overnight around 20 degrees, so another tropical night for a few people. But otherwise, this band of cloud is moving that humidity out the way, and that cloud will lift through the afternoon and start to break up, leaving some nice sunshine for much of the UK. And look at those temperatures, a lot lower than what we saw over the last few days, around the mid to high 20s. We'll still be hot in a few places, but again, a lot lower than what we saw over Friday and Saturday. Now for the rest of the evening, a nice evening to come. Like I said, temperatures still hot in a few places, mostly across East Anglia through this afternoon. And again, Northern Ireland seeing a little bit more in the way of some cloud and a few showers across Scotland. Some of these could be blustery and we could see some windier conditions across those Northern Isles as well as we end the weekend. But through the overnight, it is going to remain mostly dry for England and Wales. Those showers continuing across Scotland, but it is going to be a much more comfortable night to come. A lot lower humidities and those temperatures are going to fall away as well. The minimum temperatures are still going to be around the mid to low teens, but like I say, it's the humidities that are going to make it a lot more comfortable for a few people for the overnight period and to start the new week as well. As we start Monday then, it is going to be a pleasant start, plenty of bright sunny skies, a bit more in the way of cloud out towards the west for Wales, the southwest and northern England, and some patchy cloud for Northern Ireland as well. A few showers across Scotland, but in that sunshine it will feel rather pleasant. Temperatures around those mid to low 20s, which is what we would expect for the time of year.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get this on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right.
GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Live from London, England, this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. Britain's boomerang borders. You will not believe how many previously deported migrants have been recorded re-entering the UK since 2021. And breaking tonight, you or I could soon be deciding whether failed asylum seekers can stay in Britain.
Your situation is very similar. You know, you have people coming in, and I told the Prime Minister I would stop it, and it doesn't matter if you call out the military, it doesn't matter what means you use.
In other news, Britain's Navy goes drone. Plans for a new fleet of destroyers have reportedly been scrapped in favour of drone motherships and autonomous warfare. Is this the right move?
Living in more dangerous and volatile times than at any time in my life or in your life.
Drama in Holyrood. The King has been drawn into a fresh political row after being made to sit through, well, let's call it a controversial performance at the Scottish Parliament.
Oh, you mean Darien, the New World, the shipbuilding?
Aye, the shipbuilding.
For the slaves.
I weep for the future. In other news, peace deal on the brink. Donald Trump warns Iran it could face annihilation as fighting resumes despite a ceasefire agreement. Jungles or Jets, Ed Miliband reportedly wanted to pledge, wait for it, £400 million to save rainforests during a row over defence spending until ministers became worried about the optics. Oh, I wonder why. I'm Will Kingston and this is The Late Show Live. Welcome to The Late Show Live for a third and final hour, ladies and gentlemen. Things are just starting to heat up, both in the London studio with former Conservative Minister Tom Pursglove and GB News contributor and the People's Gammon Paul Cox. In Washington DC, we have foreign correspondent Sarah Firth and Senior Research Fellow at the Heritage Foundation, Simon Hankinson. Thank you one and all for enduring me for another hour. Let's go on to more breaking news this evening. President Trump has warned that America could be forced to finish the job in Iran after launching further strikes on multiple targets in Iran, a day after it struck the country in retaliation for a drone attack on a cargo ship in the Strait of Hormuz. But in a major breaking development tonight, Iran and the United States have reportedly agreed to halt recent strikes and renew talks regarding their dispute over the Strait of Hormuz. The development, reported by Axios, could end hostilities that had threatened an interim peace agreement. The two sides are also reportedly planning to meet on Tuesday in Qatar. With me now is senior Iran analyst at Dawn, Omid Memarian. Sorry, Omid. Forgive me, 2 a.m. So my pronunciation is not what it was a couple of hours ago. On to more important matters, however. Look, I have a feeling that this pattern will just continue and continue unless, to use Trump's phrase, he does just go and finish the job. Am I wrong?
Thanks for having me on. At the end of the day, for Iranians, the Strait of Hormuz is their main leverage. At this time, they think that they have not received any concessions from the U.S., or at least the things that are meaningful or tangible for them. So they still want to keep the Strait of Hormuz a viable, a relevant leverage for themselves. And I think that's why they are pushing on that. It's going to risk the negotiations, it's going to risk the talks, but at the same time, there is a huge, strong opposition to this round of negotiations, because many hardliners in Tehran believe that the negotiators should not have agreed to open the Strait of Hormuz for the promises the U.S. might not, act upon. So I think that's where we are now. But the news that came out a few hours ago that the two sides have decided to put aside military strikes and go back to the negotiation table, it seems, that there's political will both in Tehran and in Washington, and the escalation the past few days is not something that would probably, at this point at least, jeopardize the talks as a whole.
Well, I may be cynical about this, but Iran have never stuck to any agreement that they have put pen to paper on since the fall of the Shah. I don't really understand the performative deal-making process that we're going through here when, if you go on the basis of history, it is patently obvious that the Iranians will break the deal anyway.
Well, when it comes to the recent deals, at least the 2015 nuclear deal, it was not Iran that broke the deal. It was the U.S. that came out of the deal. But at this point, I think what matters is that the Memorandum of Understanding is a very vague worded document, and the two sides have different interpretations about many of the items in that memorandum. Iranians said that they will open the Strait of Hormuz gradually in the first 30 days. For the U.S., the interpretation is that you have to open up the Strait of Hormuz right away, and it should go back to the number of ships passing through the strait like the pre-war era. For Iranians, it's different. So I think that these type of interpretations are potential, minefields for both sides to derail the talks. But at this time, I think for the president in the U.S. He wants, on one side, to show a strength and project a strength, and the fact that if we want to, we can continue the attacks and go militarily finish the job, as he said. For Iranians, also, even so, it's very risky, but they want to show that still they have control over the Strait of Hormuz, and they are not fearful of another round of attack. But everybody knows that the cost of the war for both sides, particularly for Iranians, would be huge.
And final question, give me a prediction. How do you think this conflict ends?
It very much depends on the political will and whether the U.S. wants to go through this very difficult pathway of diplomacy. And also we have a divide inside the country. There's little trust in the U.S. that there are hardliners who are pushing for the Iranian leadership to keep the Strait of Hormuz and go after tolling ships through the Strait of Hormuz, and that's not something that could be is viable in the U.S. And there's no appetite for the U.S. to let Iranians receive toll from ships. So if this divide doesn't fill out in the next few weeks, I think we will have a problem. But at the same time, I think Iranians are in a very dire economic situation, and I think there are people inside the country telling those hardliners that you have to stop this path and we have to move forward with diplomacy. We have to see what's going to happen next.
Ahmed, thank you very much for your time this morning. Let's go to my panel. I'll start with DC and I'll go to you first, Simon. Simon, increasingly this conflict to me feels like it is a fire that's been only partially put out, and you have to put out a fire entirely, of course, if you want to actually eliminate the problem. How can we have any confidence that with this regime still in place, they will not go on to break their word and not go on to rearm, to continue their nuclear ambitions and to do what they have done for so many years prior to today?
Yeah, I'm not sure that we ever can unless we have the physical means to do so. And I think one thing that this president has demonstrated, which we've never done since 1979 when they first took our embassy staff hostage for over a year, is show them that we will carry out our threats if we make them. And that does at least change the game, because up to now they've gotten away with subsidizing terrorism, with attacking us by proxies, and all manner of mayhem across the world. But yeah, it feels a bit like, I was trying to think of a historical analogy like the Crusades, where they're constantly making deals with each other and having truces and then going right back to war the next day. And it does feel like we're on a roller coaster where every week we seem to be right back to square one.
Paul, what do you make of it?
Oh, yeah, I agree with everything Simon said there, actually, in terms of the reasons to do this and the show of strength. My fear has been, right since the beginning of this, is that the promise to the Iranian people was that help was coming. And right now, I'm not seeing if that help has arrived at all. As much as I support the de-arming of Iran, of course, and all of its proxies, that's not been achieved. And the people are still there wondering what on earth's going on. I was speaking to some Iranian friends yesterday who are very supportive of Donald Trump's action in Iran, but are also very worried because they can't see tangible change either.
Tom?
I'm afraid I'm very pessimistic about all of this, because I think that this is going to be a century that is defined by two very differing tectonic plates. And exactly as you suggest, Will, they've got a very bad track record, the Iranians, in terms of keeping their promises. This all feels very performative. It feels like we consistently just see the can kicked a little bit further down the road. And I just don't see a world where Iran will give up its nuclear ambitions and where you can trust a word that it says about its intentions in that regard. So I'm afraid, as I say, I'm exceptionally pessimistic about where this leads.
For the avoidance of doubt, what are those two tectonic plates?
So, you know, we know that Iran is a client state of China, and that is the reality of global politics. When you look at the big debate that we need to have in our country about our spending on defence, if the reports are to be believed, we're only going to be funding defence to about half the level of which the experts in the services feel that we ought to be, which is a terrifying prospect. We ought to be building our defences, we ought to be investing in that technology, both the conventional but also very much moving towards those technologies of the future, particularly learning from the Ukraine experience and investing in drone technology. And as Al Khan's has said this week, you can sink a warship, a £1 billion warship, with a £100,000 drone. That is where defence is going, and I think that this is going to be a century that is going to be defined by those two tectonic plates.
Sarah, I think this is an interesting angle, looking at it in the context of a broader great power struggle. If you accept that that this conflict is part of a broader geopolitical battle between the traditional power of America and the emerging power of China, do you think the Iran war has strengthened or weakened China's hand?
Oh, it's a great question. I mean, Simon would be the one to ask about China. That's not really my area of expertise. But I do just, will want to bring you some of the lines that came out tonight, because it's major. You know, the US and Iran have agreed to halt strikes and meet this week. They said that they decided, this is from a senior US official who told Axios's Barak Ravid, I don't know how that guy gets all the scoops he does, that we've decided to stop all the kinetic activity, using the military's term for strikes and other attacks. And a second US official told him that both sides will stand down for now, vessels can move freely, as technical talks are set to continue. But mostly I agree with the views of all the panel, actually. I mean, it's being called the war of choice. I've got Simon's historical comparison here, which for me would be Vietnam. It's a war that, you know, President Trump promised no more forever wars to his base. And I know from the polling and from people I've spoken to within that MAGA base, there is a real fracture amongst his core supporters over the decision to go into this war against Iran with Israel. And I also, you know, on the point about the defense aspect of it, I mean, I think, I never thought I would say the sentence, but Paul Cox made the point of the night for me on GBN tonight, which is that the Iranian people and their situation, the voices are just completely missing from the conversation. You know, America and the administration invoked them and their situation at the start of this war. So they've got the Americans striking Iran. They've got a hardline regime that has, you know, cracked down on them ruthlessly. And that leaves, you know, everyday Iranians stuck in a very, very miserable, difficult, dangerous, life-threatening situation right now, and yet their voices are almost entirely missing from this conversation when we speak about the US says and Iran says and the strikes. And one final point, guys, because this is really worth watching. The US and Iran can claim or counterclaim, Will, as you've pointed out, as they've been doing, since the start of this conflict. They can say till the end of time that it is safe for ships to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Every time this skirmish, as President Trump likes to call it, or strikes are exchanged, the shipping vessels, the shipping industry are making their own decisions about who they're going to send through. Would you want to be taking people's word for it at this point if you're on a ship out in the Strait of Hormuz right now? I don't think so.
Yes, I don't particularly trust the ability of Iran to clear mines in that strait. I certainly wouldn't want to be the captain of the first commercial shipping vessel going through there. I'd probably prefer to be a fast follower. Simon, to you for the final question, because I am interested in the lens that Tom put on this. When we look at this as part of a great power struggle, has the Iran conflict strengthened or weakened China's hand relative to the United States?
Wow, that's a good one. I mean, anything that's bad for us is good for China, right? I think that's the lens through which they see it. So China's probably thinking, great, the more damage that we take, either financially, militarily, the more we spend, the better for them. But this is their client state, and they've already lost Venezuela, Cuba. They're losing one by one these states through which they're trying to manipulate the United States, and now they've lost Iran. At least it's not what it used to be. So I think China's probably feeling like they've lost a lot of influence in Asia and in Latin America as a result of this conflict with Iran.
Do you used to live in China?
No.
Oh.
India.
India. Still ahead on The Late Show Live, ladies and gentlemen. France has blamed the United States for their deadly heatwave. Why do you think that is? Also tonight, at what age should someone be criminally responsible? Because lawyers are pushing for a major overhaul of Britain's justice system. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News. Well, this will make your blood boil, ladies and gentlemen. Plans for a £400 million UK contribution to a global rainforest fund were reportedly shelved over concerns about the political timing, according to The Times. The proposal from Ed Miliband, who else, is said to have been delayed during a row over defence spending, with Treasury figures reportedly worried about the optics. I wonder why. Sources close to Miliband insist the plans have not been abandoned, only postponed. Joy, should Britain prioritise overseas climate funding while facing growing pressures to increase defence spending? Paul, I'll go to you first. Look, nothing really surprises me when it comes to the lunacy of climate and environmental policy in this country, but this may well take the cake. This man could very well be the next Chancellor of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, what a match made in hell Ed Miliband and net zero is, really. I mean, he presides over a £10 billion a year. £10 billion a year, of which we've just learned he might have spent 400 million of that on a global rainforest fund. These things are for wealthy countries with surging economies. We are not those things. We have an economy that's on its knees, and we have a societal division, and we have a lot of problems with our own systems internally, and we're wasting money, I believe, on trying to make a contribution to the overall global emissions, which will be less than 1%. So even if we outdid ourselves, and Ed Miliband spent £20 billion a year, we just would not see, and neither would the globe see, the benefits required for that spend. You could take all of that money, you could put half of it on defence, you could put all of it on the NHS. Each year you could make a pledge to a much more worthy cause, putting up a fence around the UK to stop asylum seekers getting in. Anything you like, but net zero is a big waste of money.
Tom, this masochistic eco-zealotry began under the Conservatives. I'm not blaming you personally, but do you regret the role that the Conservatives played in bringing this about and inflicting it upon the British people?
This is a whole new level, isn't it? I mean, I personally favour having a sensible energy mix where you can have local generation to meet local need. That makes eminent sense, and I think most people would agree with that. What doesn't make sense is that at a time when Ministers are seeking to hike people's taxes, unemployment's going up, the economy is not making the progress that it ought to be and is lagging behind places like the United States. And when you compare energy costs in the US relative to those here in the UK, it is eye-watering, the fact that we are paying over 100% more for our electricity. So my message to Ed Miliband, who may be Chancellor in just a few weeks' time, is that rather than looking at spending 400 million on this rainforest project, is why don't you look to invest in initiatives that would genuinely help British families who are really struggling with their energy bills to bring those bills down. A good start would be North Sea oil and gas, which makes sense not just environmentally, in terms of you're not then importing that resource from other parts of the world, but it's also a great way to invest in UK jobs, a great way to bring energy bills down for consumers. That's what he should be spending this sort of money on if he wants to be investing in energy and in climate.
Sarah, what do you think this Shell project says about what a potential Ed Miliband chancellorship would look like?
Well, first of all, I mean, I wish that they had captured all our faces' response to that Ed Miliband clip that you played, because that would be priceless. I mean, we all have pretty much the same reaction to it. I don't know if we can play it again a little later. Yeah, let's get it back. But look, I think, first of all, to the point about a sensible energy mix, I completely agree with that. And it's so interesting mentioning North Sea oil. You know, President Trump has been very clear in his advice to the United Kingdom to drill, baby, drill. And of course, there are reasons around why it's a little bit more complicated for the UK, but there are actually some loopholes, and I think there is the potential there. I mean, I actually wrote about that this week in my Substack, and it was an advice to the next Prime Minister if they want to get on well with President Trump. And I actually do think that it's well worth looking at having that more sensible energy mix and taking President Trump's advice when it comes to lowering energy prices, lowering energy costs for the United Kingdom. You know, he knows his stuff, and he's done well here. Just one final point though, guys, where I disagree. It is, when it comes to the rainforest, it is cheaper to keep existing rainforest standing than to deal with the economic fallout of destroying the rainforest. So it's just something to keep in mind. Save the trees.
Let's have another look at Ed Miliband doing his tough guy routine.
But am I tough enough? Tough enough? Hell yes, I'm tough enough.
Simon, your thoughts?
Well, yeah, that makes me laugh. Look, the answer is real simple. You got $400 million to spare. Build a nuclear power plant. We're going to have nuclear fusion, hopefully in my lifetime. And when we have that, we've got clean power forever. So in the meantime, we need nuclear fission, which we can have. It's cheaper, it's cleaner, it does everything the Greens want it to do. The French have, what, 80% of their power from nuclear power. The Germans threw it out the window, and now they can't, light the streets at night without burning diesel fuel. So let's spend it on realistic solutions to the problem. And as far as buying rainforest, look, who are you going to trust? You're going to sign some check and going to hope that the Brazilians aren't going to chop down the rainforest? Because trust me, on the ground, there'll be illegal farmers going out there and chopping it down, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, I would clarify as well, and I agree with your sentiment that this country certainly does not have £400 million to spare to spend on boondoggles. Still ahead on The Late Show Live, a major rethink of youth justice is on the table. Should the age of criminal responsibility be raised? But also tonight, as Europe swelters, should France be blaming the US or looking closer to home? Plus, the death toll from the deadly earthquakes in Venezuela has risen to just under 1,500 people. The latest from the region on that situation is still ahead. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. The last sort of hot days was yesterday. It is going to be a bit of a muggy start for a few people this morning, but the fresher air is starting to move in and we will have some fresher nights to come as well. The mugginess is going to be across the southeast this morning. Temperatures overnight around 20 degrees, so another tropical night for a few people. But otherwise, this band of cloud is moving that humidity out the way, and that cloud will lift through the afternoon and start to break up, leaving some nice sunshine for much of the UK. And look at those temperatures, a lot lower than what we saw over the last few days, around the mid to high 20s. It will still be hot in a few places, but again, a lot lower than what we saw over Friday and Saturday. Now for the rest of the evening, a nice evening to come. Like I said, temperatures still hot in a few places, mostly across East Anglia through this afternoon. And again, Northern Ireland seeing a little bit more in the way of some cloud and a few showers across Scotland. Some of these could be blustery and we could see some windier conditions across those Northern Isles as well as we end the weekend. But through the overnight, it is going to remain mostly dry for England and Wales. Those showers continuing across Scotland, but it is going to be a much more comfortable night to come. A lot lower humidities and those temperatures are going to fall away as well. The minimum temperatures are still going to be around the mid to low teens, but like I say, it's the humidities that are going to make it a lot more comfortable for a few people for the overnight period and to start the new week as well. As we start Monday then, it is going to be a pleasant start, plenty of bright sunny skies, a bit more in the way of cloud out towards the west for Wales, the southwest and northern England, and some patchy cloud for Northern Ireland as well. A few showers across Scotland, but in that sunshine it will feel rather pleasant. Temperatures around those mid to low 20s, which is what we would expect for the time of year.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
To all of you who voted for GB News to win at the Trick Awards for the 4th year in a row.
The winner is GB News.
Thank you so much for voting for us. It's because of you that we're so proud to be the People's Channel, and it's because of you that we are Britain's news channel.
It's voted for the people who watch us.
Well, we've got the best viewers in the world, haven't we? The most loyal viewers.
Thank you.
Welcome back to The Late Show live on GB News. Lawyers are calling for the age of criminal responsibility in England and Wales to be raised from 10 to 14. The Bar Council says decades of research into child development shows young offenders should be dealt with differently. This change would bring England into line with international thresholds. The government says it will consider the proposal as part of a wider youth justice reform plan. Should 10-year-olds be held criminally responsible, or is it time to raise the age? Let's go to my panel now. But before I do, I think it's worth actually clarifying what this would actually mean. So at the moment, if you are under the minimum age, which is 10, you cannot be arrested as a child, and authorities can only use alternative measures like child safety orders or local child curfews. At the moment, if you are between the ages of 10 to 17, a child can be arrested, or a teenager, I suppose, can be arrested, charged and taken to court, but they're treated differently to adults. So they're put in, say, youth detention facilities, for example, and at 18 you are then an adult. What this would do is it would raise that minimum age from 10 to 14. Tom, do you think this is the right move?
No, and what sort of message does it send when we're trying to teach young people about right and wrong? And I think about just how important that was when I was growing up. I didn't feel that there was any need for that sort of change. I just don't see any evidence that stacks up as to why we ought to be going down this route, because there's things like the sentencing guidelines and various other pieces of information and guidelines that structure decision-making in the judiciary to properly weight these sorts of factors. And we saw a few weeks ago, didn't we, that appalling double rape case where those young men who had raped violently 2 young women went to court, were not given custodial sentences on the back of that. That is now been referred to the Court of Appeal, and quite rightly, because I think actually it's terrifying that young people, regardless of the fact that they're young people, clearly a danger to the public, should be held accountable for those sorts of crimes. I think it's really, really important that we lay down a marker for young people about what is right and what is wrong, and I just don't believe that any sort of compelling evidence has been shared that warrants such a significant change to the law.
Simon, my understanding is that in the United States the minimum age differs by state. Apparently it ranges between 7, which feels very low, to 13. The age of criminal responsibility for federal crimes is 11 in the United States. Do you think it should be raised in the UK? Where do you think the right number sits?
I'm 100% with Tom on this. I think if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Obviously, cases involving juveniles are all different. There are some kids that can do some horrific things, as he talked about that rape, and there's other cases. We had a 17-year-old stab another 17-year-old to death a while back. It's become a big national case here. You have to have the tools to keep these kids away from other people until they can be either rehabilitated or, I guess in some cases kept, permanently away from others if they're murderers. So I don't see any reason to raise it. As far as I understand in the U.S., I mean, it's not like you're going to try them as adults if they're 10 years old. They have to go to juvenile detention. It's a different place. They're not with adults. But yeah, I think the system as it has worked for hundreds of years, and it's probably best not to mess with it.
Paul, your thoughts?
No, we can't talk about this sort of stuff without, unfortunately, bringing up the tragic case of Jamie Bolger in 1993, where 2 young 10-year-old boys, just a few years younger than me at the time, committed one of the most heinous crimes we've seen in modern history in Great Britain. Those boys were 10 and 11, I think, at the time, and they were treated by the law as they should have been. This, once again, is another example of a resolution that doesn't fix the problem. The problem is we have this overwhelming task load within the judiciary, both right at the front end with police and at the back end when it comes to courts and everything like that. And we're just trying to find anything to we're tinkering around in the long grass to try to find anything other than actually deal with the problem. And I'm not suggesting that fixing the problem is easy, but there are great constitutional and system-wide issues that would need tackling, and it would need a great deal of money. And I already know where it's coming from. Ed Miliband and Net Zero.
Yep, take it from the Rainforest Fund. Sarah, your final thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I agree the case hasn't been fully made. Speaking about the appalling James Bolger case, I mean, everyone remembers that. That was actually addressed by campaigners for this change, who argued that the murder of 2-year-old James Bolger in Liverpool by the 10-year-olds John Venables and Robert Thompson in '93 has led to the reluctance to increase the age of criminal responsibility. Now, in the data, they have said that the reason that they feel the current age of 10 years is far too low is that of 1,590 children aged between 10 and 14 found guilty of offences in the year to March 2025, just 22 were sentenced to immediate custody, and they argue that such a small number makes it clear. The argument, you know what, I'm a new mum. I've got 2 young ones at home. I wouldn't want them to, I wouldn't want the age to be raised. I think what the point, I can't remember who made it, of someone saying that you need to have a boundary, a sort of line in the sand, and that is what, especially to, the UK kids were feral. Yeah, I think if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Was that you, Simon? Yeah. So well, I'm kind of with the panel on this one for once.
Yeah, well, as you're seeing, ladies and gentlemen, those harrowing images from the murder of James Bolger in 1993, they're images that haunted the nation and continue to haunt the nation. For what it's worth, a 13-year-old to me feels like someone who knows the difference between right and wrong. Instinctively, I would suggest that they should be treated as a young adult as opposed to a child. Well, let's move to another sad story, and that is the death toll in the twin earthquakes that struck Venezuela earlier this week is now nearing 1,500. According to one of the country's top politicians, Jorge Rodriguez, another 3,200 people were injured and 3,100 left homeless by the disaster. Rescuers are still searching for survivors after the 7.2 and 7.5 magnitude quakes struck within a minute of each other on Wednesday evening, flattening buildings in the north of the country. At least 68,900 people have been reported unaccounted for by their families. With me now is fellow at the Manhattan Institute, Daniel DiMartino. Daniel, thank you very much for your time. Can you get us up to date with what is now a very, very sad human tragedy?
Hi, Will. Thank you for having me. Look, this is the worst natural disaster in Venezuelan history, but the reason it is the worst natural disaster is because we have the worst regime in Venezuelan history. What is happening right now on the ground is that we're seeing the Venezuelan military stand on the way of people who are trying to rescue others, stand on the way of the U.S. military and foreign rescuers who are trying to help people, and even getting to the rubbles of destroyed buildings to steal the belongings of earthquake victims rather than help them. What we're seeing right now is really crimes against humanity. It's truly disgusting. I've never been as disgusting as I am today.
I'm reading in The Guardian here a commentary article from Andrew Roth, who says the Venezuelan earthquakes will test Trump's new Western Hemisphere policy after gutting of US aid. How do you think this does, or do you think this does indeed challenge the US on a geopolitical level?
You know, I think that the challenge is not about aid. Venezuela doesn't need, billions in aid and charity. What Venezuela needs is liberty, right? Because the truth is the damages caused by this earthquake and this regime are in the hundreds of billions. There's no aid package that will make up for that. The question for the future is, where are all the people that are now left homeless, which is not 3,000, like you said, it's tens of thousands, because 3,000 are just the people homeless from like one building or two buildings, not the hundreds of buildings that have fallen apart. So the question is, who's going to rebuild? Yeah, thriving private sector economy can rebuild. And that's never going to happen with this regime in power. So what I hope will happen in Venezuela soon is there will be a transition towards a democratic, free government, not one like the one that exists now, that is actually stealing the belongings from victims. I mean, who is going to, in the right mind, invest in a Venezuela like that, right?
How likely do you think that is, Daniel?
How long do I think that's going to happen?
How likely do you think it is that you'll see a change of regime in Venezuela, if at all?
You know, I think that I have never seen Venezuelans as fed up as they are today. And I hope that that will precipitate some sort of change on the ground. I'm not sure if that's what will happen. We're facing a really evil group of people who have the weapons. But, I really pray. I think that there is the possibility. I trust Secretary Rubio and the President of the United States on this. I think that they want what's best, too. And the question is, how fast can we get there? I'm not sure.
Is there an effective and coordinated opposition movement in the country?
That is absolutely true, yes. I mean, there is a unified and widely supported opposition leader, that's Maria Corina Machado, who, said this morning on Fox that she's going to go to Venezuela almost immediately, very soon. And if that's the case, they definitely, in fact, most of the aid that's happening inside the country is coordinated by the civilian authorities, by the opposition, not by the regime, because the regime has been stealing it and the civilians don't trust the military to give them the aid, right? So I think the country, the civilian population has never been more unified than it is today in Venezuela. The problem is that the rulers are the enemy of the people.
Well said. Daniel, thanks very much for your insights. In other news, a senior Paris official has blamed the United States for France's deadly heatwave, arguing America's high emissions and widespread use of air conditioning have contributed to global warming. The remarks came after Americans mocked France online for its lack of aircon during record-breaking temperatures. France has recorded around 1,000 excess deaths since the peak of the heatwave, according to preliminary figures released by Public Health France. So, is blaming America fair, or should France focus on preparing itself for hotter summers? Joining me now is my panel, Tom Perslove, Paul Cox, and of course in DC, Simon Hankinson and Sarah Firth. Paul, I'll start with you. In France, air conditioning has become a political dividing line. You've had Le Pen basically arguing for widespread adoption of and implementation of air conditioning, and then the leftist leader Mélenchon has suggested that it will only make the problem worse, as if the negligible amount of carbon emissions from French air conditioners will somehow blow up the planet. Is air conditioning far right now?
I hope so. What I would say is, isn't it ironic here that the solution has become far right? Because any Western technical well-heeled nation will solve the problem of any climate change or warming of the globe through air conditioning, which will not add to the problem at all, really. In fact, it will save lives. But because there is a ready-made solution in place, and because we've been putting it in buildings across the UK and across the West since the 60s and 70s, most of it's still working. If you go into any office building, the studio we're sat in here now is air-conditioned. I'm not sweating profusely right now because we're at a lovely 19 or 20 degrees Celsius. That is not causing a massive problem. What is causing a problem to those that are on the climate alarmist side of the argument, the zealots, that they see a very quick solution in air conditioning, so they need to make it bad.
Well, Tom, since 2021, under the Conservatives, there's been, and it differs a bit from different regulatory authorities, but there's been a de facto ban on air conditioning in new homes in this country. I thought the Conservatives had a great deal of cheek in basically saying that this was the fault of Robert Jenrick and that they would overturn Robert Jenrick's ban on air conditioning, as if he wasn't associated with the Conservatives at the time this ban came into effect. What do you make of the reluctance amongst, some in the Conservative Party, but then also amongst leftist politicians and the commentariat class to embrace what should just be a sensible solution to hotter temperatures?
Yeah, we need to get a grip. And I actually have found it rather refreshing that Claire Coutinho,
well said.
for the Tories, has been out saying this needs to happen, let's not stand in the way of it. And look, I think the last week just proves the point. You've got NHS appointments being cancelled for people who need treatment. You've seen chaos on the railways, you've seen kids not able to go to school, you've got people living in accommodation in really uncomfortable, unsatisfactory conditions. And at the moment, what we've got are regulations that I think are sort of termed under the cooling hierarchy that get in the way and stop people from being able to do this. I think there's things that local authorities ought to be spending their time concentrating on. This is not one of them. This is just one of these examples where officialdom has gone mad. And what we need to see is a bit of common sense. The Americans have got this right. It's quite clear that there's a need in this country. Let's just get on and do it.
Simon, these cooling hierarchies that Tom referred to are bonkers. They're basically guidelines given to councils that basically says all of these particular measures to cool a home need to be investigated before you can consider putting air conditioning in. And that includes opening the window, for example, is above air conditioning on the cooling hierarchy. And this happens at the same time where British people are needlessly sweltering in their living rooms. Again, for a country like the United States, where most homes have air conditioning, this must look absolutely nuts.
Look, I came here to the U.S. when I was about 7. Summer of '76, we moved to D.C., and we had no air conditioning in our house, and I've never been so miserable in my entire life. We sat there on our beds, sweating with this tiny little fan farting over us. The moment we got AC, life got good. The whole southern United States developed, had an economic boom once they got AC, because then they could actually work and be productive. It is a gift, a miracle of human engineering, and these days they're much more efficient. We just put a heat pump at our place in New Hampshire. This thing uses way less electricity to keep the place comfortable. So why not just embrace this miracle and not politicize it and demonize it?
Yeah, Sarah, so from my quick Google here, about 88 to 90%, give or take, of all homes in the United States have some form of air conditioning. It's about 4 to 5% in UK homes. Do you think that the UK should move to implement air conditioning in order to alleviate the problems of increasing heat, which may or may not be as a result of climate change?
Do you know what? I'm undecided on that. What I will say is the Americans use the AC far too everywhere. Inside is too cold, and then everywhere outside, especially in Washington DC, is too hot. There is a reason that they call it the swamp here in DC. So I think it's sort of American overuse. I was sort of looking at the link because obviously, guys, we were talking, we had a laugh at Ed Miliband's expense, but everyone sort of jumped on, they're fine, let's chop down the rainforest and not save them. And now we're saying that we want to use endless AC. So I was trying to figure out if there was how much it takes from the energy grid. But look, also on a very serious point, that aside, so I don't have enough information right now, honestly, to make an informed decision on, as I said, I can tell you from my experience living here for the last 4 years, just Americans, they crank up the AC and I don't know who's paying for it or where the energy's coming from. But in France in particular, guys, a thought for the fact that it's not just the general population, it is the most young and vulnerable amongst the population that are suffering. I came across the New York Times reporting there's been a rise of children found dead in their vehicles because of the record-breaking heat. It's obviously, as we've reported, over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. In one instance, a 3-year-old boy, and you've got more than 50 people who've drowned. So I think the immediate focus, especially for France and the UK, look, France is, some of the companies are letting their kids come into the offices that have air conditioning. Just, it's too hot, and I think especially with the children, that's not obviously, I mean, having 2 young ones myself, that's made me heartbroken, but I think it's a reminder for all of us to look out for one another, right? In the UK, when it gets hot, we don't have currently the setup like the Americans do. We simply don't, and we probably should. But so look out for the elderly, watch your children, watch out for the heat in the cars, and just keep safe in this record-breaking heat, guys.
Yeah, well said. Let's delve into some of the other main stories on the front of tomorrow's newspapers, starting with The Telegraph, which is reporting that the White House is concerned that Britain is falling behind on its defence spending commitments, potentially setting up an early clash with Andy Burnham. Officials in Donald Trump's administration were deeply sceptical that the government would honour its pledge to spend 5% of GDP on the military, sources told The Telegraph. 3 people, including a senior administration official, told The Telegraph the White House feared Britain and other European countries had made a false promise by committing to the president's demand for higher defence spending. Let's go to my panel. Paul, I'll start with you. I think the White House is on pretty firm ground here because literally, 2 weeks ago, you had Al Cairns and John Healey resigning from the Labor cabinet because they were concerned that the Labor government wasn't doing enough on defence.
Now, the dip was dismissed out of hand as not being good enough. And by the way, John Healey and Al Cairns are probably about the best Labour have to offer. They don't share the same politics as me, but these seem like good men. I'm someone who understands particularly contract defence work fairly well from my previous career. And I know people now working actively in the Navy, for instance. I live near Portsmouth, as many people know, and they've been waiting for the dip for many years. A lot of the things we've been talking about have been tied to the Defence Investment Plan and have not been able to be started, so it's already behind schedule. And at 2.5%, which is the target, it's still not enough, really. It's not enough. If you look at the way we are under-defended in the UK, we saw the problems when we failed to support the US with Iran, irrespective of what you may think of that war or Donald Trump, we were unable to. That is a big concern because there are many people that would still love to attack us. We are not what we once were, and I think because we've lived through a sort of halcyon period of a fairly peaceful years, that we've got a little bit complacent. And I think we need to really, really listen to what the White House is saying.
Tom, an unnamed Labor source came out after Healey resigned and said something that has stuck with me. He said, let's be clear about what John Healey is saying. He's saying that really we need to take money away from hospitals and schools if we want to increase defence spending.
And I just thought it was such a revealing insight into the way this Labor government thinks about defence, that the only ways that you can possibly try and find spending cuts would be to take away hospital beds or to take away educational resources. We all know that there is far, far too much money in this country spent on welfare, and if you're looking to find some cuts, that's a good place to start. But it doesn't feel like this government has any appetite to make the necessary cuts to find funds for defence elsewhere.
And this is the problem, that you can change the head of the government, i.e. Andy Burnham substitutes in for Keir Starmer, but it doesn't fix the fundamentals. You are going to continue to have a government that is unsound on these big, significant sort of epoch-defining decisions that need to be taken, and defence sits right at the top of the tree, things like illegal migration likewise. And on defence, I would say, exactly as has been touched on, that John Healey was somebody who I did have a bit of confidence in, actually, as somebody who is a decent, hard-working, principled man, and that was reflected in his resignation. And it doesn't surprise me when the armed forces through this spending announcement is likely to be getting only half of what it needs, only 14 and a bit billion compared to the 28 billion that those MOD insiders are saying it so desperately needs, which means that we're not going to be investing in warships. It means that we're not going to be able to get the full benefit of the technological advancement that is coming down the tracks. And we can learn a lot from what has gone on in Ukraine, particularly around the use of drones. And we ought to be right on the leading edge of that, because it's not only the right thing to do to ensure our national defence and our national security, it's also the right thing for jobs. And all the time that they're unwilling to grapple with cuts in welfare, they couldn't even deliver a £5 billion saving. That is the stark reality of this government. You can change the man at the top of the tree. I don't think the fundamentals change at all over the course of the next few weeks and months.
Sarah, your response to Tom's comments?
To be made that it's not just this government, it's multiple governments who've issued those cuts that have left our Navy, our Air Force and our soldiers in the position that they are currently in. And for everyone saying, you know, listen to Trump on this, or listen to that person on that, no, listen to the soldiers, listen to what they're saying. And I completely agree with everyone who paid respect to those who've resigned, that the men who were tasked with keeping the country safe have been resigning. And you look at the words that they're saying and the warnings that they're giving, it is appalling that the government, this government and governments past that have cut and not provided what the armed services needs, and we've got ourselves into this mess right now, and we need to fix it sharpish, because we have currently, basically on our doorstep in Europe, the situation playing out with Ukraine. I was on the ground, as I said many times, guys, reporting when Russia carried out the full-scale invasion in 2022. Kiev was like any European city. You know, everyone was having lattes one day, and the next day there were bombs falling and tanks rolling in. And then add to that the drone warfare that has evolved. So look, I asked my father the other day, because he's a former fighter pilot in the Royal Air Force. I come from a very proud military family, and I said, look, what does having the back of those on the front line look like to someone who used to be on the front line? And he said, the right equipment. Simple as that, the right equipment. So listen to what the soldiers are telling you they need, and make sure they damn well have it, because we know we are going to be facing increased threats in the future, and it's absolutely appalling that we've left our troops in the state that they're currently in.
Simon, I was listening to some analysis from Andrew Neil on this the other day, and he said words to the effect that Europe and the United Kingdom are well aware that we're moving into a new world in which the United States will not be there for defence protection the same way it has been throughout the 20th century. They need to find a way to be more self-sufficient. But he said that the US could do a heck of a lot more to help Europe and the United States with that transition in the interim period. Would you agree with that analysis, that the US isn't doing enough to help a transition to a more independent Europe and United Kingdom defence policy?
No, I would reject that out of hand. I mean, look, there's a minimum credible defense that you need as a country of 70 million people or 50 million people, Britain, France, Germany. And you guys have let us do the heavy lifting for 80 years.
No.
We lost 415,000 men in World War II. We lost 115,000 in World War I. We've had bases in Spain, the United Kingdom, Germany, Japan, Korea for pushing 80 years. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't have any presence at all, but the transition period should have been somewhere between about 1965 or 70, when your economies had grown back after the destruction of the war, and today. But European countries have used that money, that extra, money saved from the Navy in Britain and the Air Force and the Army, and used it to fund the welfare state. And now they're out of money. Now, we're borrowing money, too, to fund our $1 trillion budget, but the United Kingdom and Germany and France need to step up. It is not up to the United States to carry the load by ourselves. We'll always be there for you. NATO is strong. We're the backbone of NATO, but the rest of NATO has to do its bit, and some of them are.
Well, Simon, is NATO really that strong, given the reservations from the Trump administration about the alliance?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's extremely strong. It's always going to be there. Article 5 is still real. It's just the president is trying to remind members of NATO, look, Poland is stepping up, the Baltics are stepping up, but Spain is saying, yeah, this is never going to happen to us. You can't even use your bases on our territory. We're going to have no military and spend no money on it because Ukraine's really far away. So, no, they need to step up.
The UK forces, though, do have the tactical and the advantage by miles.
And Sarah, to that point, I do want to highlight that over 150,610 UK armed forces personnel were deployed and fought alongside the US and NATO forces in Afghanistan between 2001 and the end of Allied operations, and we honour their service and their commitment in that war. Thank you very much to those servicemen and women, and thank you indeed to my panel, Sarah, Paul Cox, Tom and Simon. Have a lovely night, ladies and gentlemen. That's all from the People's Channel, GB News.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. The last sort of hot days was yesterday. It is going to be a bit of a muggy start for a few people this morning, but the fresher air is starting to move in and we will have some fresher nights to come as well. The mugginess is going to be across the southeast this morning. Temperatures overnight around 20 degrees, so another tropical night for a few people. But otherwise, this band of cloud is moving that humidity out the way, and that cloud will lift through the afternoon and start to break up, leaving some nice sunshine for much of the UK. And look at those temperatures, a lot lower than what we saw over the last few days, around the mid to high 20s. It will still be hot in a few places, but again, a lot lower than what we saw over Friday and Saturday. Now for the rest of the evening, a nice evening to come. Like I said, temperatures still hot in a few places, mostly across East Anglia through this afternoon. And again, Northern Ireland seeing a little bit more in the way of some cloud and a few showers across Scotland. Some of these could be blustery and we could see some windier conditions across those Northern Isles as well as we end the weekend. But through the overnight, it is going to remain mostly dry for England and Wales. Those showers continuing across Scotland, but it is going to be a much more comfortable night to come. A lot lower humidities and those temperatures are going to fall away as well. The minimum temperatures are still going to be around the mid to low teens, but like I say, it's the humidities that are going to make it a lot more comfortable for a few people for the overnight period and to start the new week as well. As we start Monday then, it is going to be a pleasant start. Plenty of bright sunny skies, a bit more in the way of cloud out towards the west for Wales, the southwest and northern England, and some patchy cloud for Northern Ireland as well. A few showers across Scotland, but in that sunshine, it will feel rather pleasant. Temperatures around those mid to low 20s, which is what we would expect for the time of year.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
the People's Channel?
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me. Do you trust what you're being told?
Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
We can allow.
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk then? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part